Moments ago.
Good morning, everybody. It is a crazy day. Israel has attacked Iran's nuclear sites from inside Iran. Netanyahu claims it was necessary to curb an imminent threat of Iran getting nuclear weapons. Boy, are people going to argue that one. Several high-ranking military leaders were killed. Multiple nuclear scientists were killed as well. Iran tried, it seems, to launch drones in retaliation, but those seem to have been swatted down by Israel, potentially also from inside of Iran, though that one I have less certainty on. So this is a breaking news situation. I'm sure a lot of facts are going to come out over time that show that we're sort of in the fog of war. Nobody knows exactly what's going on. We'll keep an eye on X as we go on here. And then, by the way, for you guys, please, if you see something popping off that we've missed, if there's any breaking information, we'll have our eye on chat. Let us know if you guys see anything. We definitely want to keep this as up to the minute as we can. So thank you guys for joining us. This really is crazy. Like, this is, by the way, we have to, Drew looks very different today. Everybody, we are joined by David Kim. David Kim, thank you for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Real quick background on David, and then I know David's going to take us in here. David has been with Impact Theory for a very long time, but recently has moved out of Los Angeles. We are desperately trying to get him back. He is on our creative team, but when he lived in LA, I used to work with him all the time prepping for episodes. Very sharp person. I mean, you guys will be the judge of that today. But I certainly have been impressed with his ability to think through problems. And I'm sure you can't tell, but he is substantively younger than I am. And so having a different angle on things has always been useful. So when Drew was going to be out of town, Lisa was unavailable. The first person I thought of was David Kim. So we flew him in, and here we are, boys and girls.
Again, this is a crazy day to come in. We did not expect this to happen.
Slow news day? Not so much.
So as you were saying, last night, Israel just launched Operation Rising Lion, the first time they're sending missile strikes directly on the nuclear sites of Iran. Now, they are claiming, this claim is that they have enriched their uranium to the point where in just a couple months, they might be able to create nuclear warheads, which is why they wanted to do this preemptive attack. Now, I know your position on preemptive attacks. Do you feel like this is, past the pale for you? Or again, this kind of escalation is kind of what's normal?
The question that's going to be debated in the media is going to be somewhat unhinged because none of us know what the intel actually says. So answering this as a thought exercise is going to be way more potent because the military Israel has way more information than we have. Iran obviously knows exactly what's going on. Trump probably has a ton of information. I would assume that Marco Rubio has a ton of information. They're going to give us some of that information in the coming hours and days, but we're not going to have the full picture. So to respond based on what we know now, yeah, I mean, this could just as easily be us going into Iraq and being like, hey, weapons of mass destruction. We're going to just start fucking killing everybody. Oh, and P.S. while we're here, we'll just take a bit of that oil. So I do not have enough information to know if this is justified or not. So now running it as a thought exercise, if Iran is still, you know, indeterminate in terms of when they're going to be able to actually produce weapons-grade uranium, and this is, you know, years off in the future, then this is a political move almost certainly by Netanyahu, who obviously is in deep political trouble, sees an opportunity to get the West back on his side. I think the West has flipped hard on Israel over the course of this. Now, politically, still seems to have a ton of backing from the Trump administration. But in terms of the average person on the street, like, yo, I think that they are rapidly losing that. And so if they can convince the world this was an imminent threat, these guys are really about to do us super dirty, get it. If my understanding of the way Israelis are mapping this situation, it goes something like this. Iran has always been the issue. We always thought we were going to go after Iran first and then deal with the other pockets of Hezbollah, Hamas, and that was going to be down the road. Well, October 7th flipped that on its head. Now we're doing it in reverse order. And so first it was Hamas, Hezbollah, and now we're going after Iran. Now, is that just, well, once the train started, there was no stopping it. And from the moment we decided to go into Gaza, this was a nonstop train all the way to Iran. And hey, great political maneuvering for Netanyahu, who seems to be increasingly unpopular even within his own country. Certainly exterior, from the outside, people are, he becomes a thing that they all point at and say, all right, this guy's just a warmonger, sociopath, murderer, genocider. So if war is the tool being used by him to stay in power, it's like, yeah, I get it. But again, I don't have the data, so I don't know if that's actually what's happening or if it's like, yo, they really were about to enrich this. So despite the fact, it seems clear that Netanyahu and Trump were communicating.
Right, yes.
Seems clear that Trump preferred a diplomatic solution, but he had been warning, according to him, warning Iran directly to their face, you've got an attack coming that you're not anticipating. It's worse than you expect. And he tweeted, in fact, pull up his tweet. It's in the doc. But Trump basically just told them to their face, you've got something bad coming. You 100% need to agree to not continuing to go down the nuclear path.
We got that up.
All right, read it for the people, David.
I gave Iran a chance after a chance to make a deal. I told them in the strongest of words to just do it. But no matter how hard they tried, no matter how close they got, they couldn't get it done. I told them it would be much worse than anything they know, anticipated, or were told, and that the United States makes the best and most lethal military equipment anywhere in the world by far, and that Israel has a lot of it, and with much more to come, and they know how to use it. Certain Iranian hardliners spoke bravely, but they didn't know what was about to happen. They're all dead now, and it will only get worse.
The way he talks is so crazy.
It's so insane. But there has been this slaughter, or this great death, destruction, and there's still time to make this slaughter, with the next already planned attacks being even more brutal, come to an end. Iran must make a deal before there's nothing left and save what was known as Iranian Empire. No more death, no more destruction, just do it before it is too late. God bless you all. And that's his statement.
Yeah, so man, we are going to see if Iran was getting that message directly from Trump and they still pushed forward, that certainly says something. It is admittedly a little hard to believe that Iran was like, no, we just want nuclear power. Like, come on, guys, like this is going to be fine. Because I know at one point they were being told, hey, we can get you uranium. You just can't enrich it yourself. You've got to be at the point where we're giving you the kind of uranium that, one, is enriched by somebody else who's already in nuclear power, two, the kind that you could only use in centrifuges. And then 3, that way we could completely control how much you have. We know what it's being used for, et cetera, et cetera. Now, listen, I get it. As a sovereign nation, you don't want anybody telling you what you can and can't do. But this is also why it's really bad PR to put out into the world that you want to destroy both America and Israel. That strikes me as you're going to get some kind of response. And so hearing Trump talk about it, I mean, after the attack, he's very measured, like shockingly measured. I want to see them do well. We would help them do well, but they just have to understand that they're not going to get a nuclear weapon. And so, again, I'm always being spun. I know that. Trump is spinning me. Netanyahu is spinning me. Iran is spinning me. So we're all sort of groping around in the dark trying to figure out what's actually happening.
Right.
But if you've got a U.S. president who's like, listen, we don't want to keep browbeating you with sanctions. I'm the crazy deal guy. Like, let's do a crazy deal. Like, let's get you in a position where you're not being sanctioned to death, that there's trade going on. Let's get cheaper energy going. Like, you could do a deal conceivably with Trump if what he's saying is true, and that you're like, I'm not even going to play that card. I want my fucking uranium enrichment program, and I'm willing to go to war over it. It's like, yeah.
Let's actually touch on that, because I think the communication and the back and forth and this potential psyops is what's causing a lot of this chaos. So I just saw something about 45 minutes ago. It says breaking from Axios. So the public perception campaign was intentional to make it seem like the U.S. was totally opposed to any Israeli strike to Iran, to ultimately trick Iran into letting their guard down. So that's stunning if true. So supposedly these 2 Israeli officials have claimed that Trump and his aides were only pretending to oppose the Israeli attack in public, saying, don't do this, we're trying to keep the peace. But ultimately, that was just to lower the defenses so that they actually could get a successful attack.
It's possible,
if that actually is true, and I think that's where, like, if I was Iran, can I keep trusting Trump if I know his allegiance is actually to Israel? And he keeps saying he's going to make these deals.
There is no universe in which Iran trusts Trump.
Okay.
It would be utterly shocking if Trump trusted Iran. He's said publicly that I don't trust anybody. That is, in international politics, that is very wise. You want to align your selfish desires. I think about this in business a lot. It's not about trust. It's about, are my selfish desires aligned with your selfish desires? Because when our selfish desires are aligned, we're going to pull in the same direction. This has been the fascinating collision between Trump and Elon. When their desires were aligned, hey, we get along great, this is amazing. Elon's even willing to show deference in public. It was like, whoa, like this guy is known for being hardcore, mercurial, like people do what I say behind the scenes. And publicly, he was very like, it's the president, clap for the president, standing next to the desk, like all of that. I know some people have had a little bit of beef with, like he wasn't showing enough deference, but I was very impressed. And then their desires became misaligned. And all of a sudden it's, he's on the Epstein files, just wait, it's gonna come out. It's like dropping nukes left, right, and center. So that is the right way to think about people. People are, there are no permanent alliances, only permanent, oh God, what interests? Yeah, I think you're right. So it's like, hey, if the US and Iranian interests align, a deal will get done. Okay. If they don't, they won't. But it is interesting that Trump will talk to it. If I'm not currently mapping Trump as having secretly tried to get the Iranians to lower their guard, I could be wrong, and then I will update my mental map. But my mental map currently is he just really likes to do deals. He wants to get a trade agreement. Yeah, like, hey, I want to see these guys do well, probably naive about the difference in values. But these are people that are calling us the big Satan. And he's willing to go to people that chant death to America, that call us the big Satan, and be like, let's do some deals, bro. And I really think it's sincere. Like, I think he is so economically minded that he's like, well, but if we can do a good deal for you, then of course, like there's something here. And so
if you were in his position or even just had his ear and you're now seeing all of this unfold and you understand this thing of aligning these interests, what interests can we even see us being aligned with both Iran and Israel and making it work together?
Ooh, so in terms of where our long-term interests lie, our long-term interests right now with the Trump administration is very clearly Israel. Like Israel all down the way. Up, down, left, right, B, A, select, start. Like, if I'm honest though, I have not taken the time to map out why. So it's like at the surface, AIPAC, cool, ton of money into American politics, like it or not, boys and girls, like money makes politics move. It's become so naked and in our faces. It's fucking crazy, but it is nonetheless true. Elon obviously saying so ungrateful that I spent all this money to get what I wanted and I'm not getting it. They're just, we're not even hiding it anymore, David. Right. That is the thing that I'm like, Jesus.
You like that or?
It has an upside and it has a downside. So it can get normalized to the point where kids growing up now today, that just is how the world is. There's not even a sense of like, this is gross. It just, this is just what it is.
This is the world.
Whereas when I was growing up, it was like so back channel and secretive. And it was like, did you know there's these thing called lobbyists? And you're like, lobbyists? And so that all felt scandalous. Like the mere presence of a lobbyist, at least to me as I started learning about it, felt scandalous. So I don't think that's going to feel scandalous to the next generation. It's just going to feel broken and like that's how it is. And it creates a sort of defeatist mentality of like, there's no way to push back. It's so deeply entrenched. Anyway, going back to what these allegiances are. So, ton of money from AIPAC.
Okay.
I have a very strong mental map right now that the Jewish diaspora, they're not monolithic. That's one of the most important things to know about them, is that calling them a them is already a mistake. But the Jewish diaspora, some portion of it is very, they really want to help protect the nation of Israel. And so I think one of the most effective ways that they do that is by being extremely economically successful in the US, being able to leverage the economics within the system, to have their voices heard, to put political pressure. But they're also, I have a feeling, and I'm going to be doing more of a deep dive. I don't know if you were listening to any of those. This oh, you were, because you sent me links. This is going to be, I think, one of my, call it in the next 4 to 6 weeks, accelerated maybe by what's going on now, deep dives where like I need to understand what's going on.
Right.
Like I have the world's most peripheral sense of especially the religious conflicts between Judaism and Islam. And so looking at that, I think is going to be very interesting. So anyway, to look at this and not understand the religious implications, I think would also be a mistake. So I think the U.S., very Christian.
Yep.
Jews obviously have a Judaic ethic. Those two are married when you think about Christianity as being sort of part one and part two. So the Old Testament is still very much a part of the New Testament. Like you both are taught in like Catholicism. I don't know as much about Protestantism, but I'm going to guess there as well. So you've got a religious affinity between the U.S. and Israel that's going to be way stronger than between the U.S. and
It's interesting
Iran.
because Islam is part of the Abrahamic, monotheistic religion, so they do have that tie. And again, if we were thinking like these religions actually share a lot of similarities compared to even more, disparate religions. So why do you think, again, it seems like there are some interests that could be aligned, but for you, were saying, I just can't see it. This conflict's going to continue.
The value system, okay, so I'm planting a flag here in terms of the mental map I have now. Okay. For my long-term audience, they'll be used to this idea, but for anybody that's new, that's never heard me talk about things like this before, I state where I'm at. So one, I can understand how things evolve over time, but these are, it's a mental map. But my mental map looks like this. There is a break between Christians and people of an Islamic faith around one very simple idea. They both believe their prophet has the correct word of God. And once you believe that your prophet has the correct word of God, then it becomes, well, what does your prophet say to do? If your prophet says to do the exact same things that my prophet says to do, oh, okay, cool, we're good. And over time, they would have found some way to be like, God spoke through both of them because they're saying the same thing.
Right.
But when you understand how minor the differences are between Catholics and Protestants, and it led to the most vicious and violent, almost like 150 years of war, it's insane. So Martin Luther writes, I think 92 or 95 theses. He puts them out. It kicks off 100 years of religious wars between Catholics and Protestants that people were still dying from. This was like back in he wrote them in like 1517 or something, and then the wars rage into the 1600s, And then you have the 30 Years' War, which kills like 20% of European population. I mean, it's just absolutely bananas, dude, the number of people that die over this. And that's like minor. So now you've got one religion that's like, our prophet is the final prophet.
Right.
And so, yeah, he gets that your prophet existed, but your prophet is just like an early dude saying some minorly interesting things. But this is the final word of God. And so you all need to convert. So now the big thing okay, but Jews don't believe in it. So where's the problem? Why is there able to be a connection? I think early mental map, my gut instinct is because the Jewish faith does not proselytize. They do not seek to convert people. But Christians and Muslims do. So now you have two proselytizing religions that both think they have the final word of God, and bam, they're smashing.
Okay.
You also have democracy. So we look at Israel and we go, oh, I recognize those values. I recognize that kind of governmental structure. We look at certainly Iran post the 1979 revolution. We're like, I don't recognize that. I don't recognize it visually. Because they used to look American. It could have been like you see one of their universities, could have been a picture taken at Stanford in 1978, right? But boy, after that revolution, it becomes very different. So you've got a theocracy, and in the other camp, you have a democracy. And so there's just enough of that. And then you pour the money on the fire, and all of a sudden you get, okay, there's a much tighter relationship between the US and Israel for all the reasons mentioned.
So again, as maybe just a selfish American, I want to now know, I understand now there's this religious, through line that's causing a lot of this conflict. You just noted in history that has led to hundreds of years of war. This might be, again, it's already been going on for decades in the Middle East, and it might continue to go. I'm trying to wonder, is this going to escalate? And if so, should the US, or why should the US even care to get involved at all?
Okay, two questions, and if I fail to get to the second part, which is probably the more interesting part, just grab me and we'll get back to it. Okay, is this going to escalate? 2 hours ago, I would have said, obviously. Iran is like, bro, we're going to fucking smash you. They have a ballistic missile program that is not to be trifled with, but their immediate response was to send a bunch of drones. And as far as I can tell, again, it's early, maybe more happened, maybe I'm stuck in propaganda and don't realize it, but it seems like Israel was like, nope, we anticipated that, and they just wiped them out. And the part that I don't have enough information on, but is the intriguing part to me, is that Israel launched these attacks from inside of Iran.
Right.
These were not launched from Israel.
I think it was both, right? They sent missiles and also had their drones attack from within. I believe
that much makes sense. But the part that is of extreme note, how long would it take to plan that attack to, was this like what Ukraine did, where you send it in trucks, or do they have actual facilities that they built out there? Now, hey, psychological warfare is a huge part of the game. So what I'm about to say, again, could be propaganda, misinformation intentionally, but they're saying we already have the next attack lined up.
Right, they're like, it's gonna go on for days.
Yeah, like, bro, if what they're trying to get Iran to believe is if you don't just take your slap, more is coming. And so
that culture doesn't seem like one they're like, all right, we'll just take the slap. And that's why I'm wondering,
who would?
So again, do you see this continue to just escalate?
Iran will escalate as much as they can. I just don't know how much they're going to be able to.
Okay.
So if Israel Israel has already knocked out all their air defense. Israeli Air Force can just fly at will over Iran. If they can fly at will over Iran, they can drop bombs at will over Iran. So I don't know the degree to which Iran is going to be able to escalate. I'm not even sure the degree to which Iran is going to be able to defend itself. So that becomes the question. I haven't heard anybody, credible anyway, say that, hey, Iran really has a strong military and they're ready for this. Most people are like, well, we would have thought they would have done better with this. And the fact that they didn't is very troubling. So yeah, it would escalate if it could, 1,000%. The question is, will Iran be able to? And if Iran can't strike back and they basically shut everything down, the question becomes, how far is Israel going to go? Because what Israel is doing in Gaza is like fucking scorched earth, man. That is at a minimum ethnic cleansing. Might be more. So that one is, if that's any indication of what they are willing to do in Iran.
And that might be the dark side. Again, if I'm just
but-
American, I'm like, in a way, I almost want to see that crazy show of force so that they can't even attack back. So there, again, there's no chance of escalation. It's like they get stopped in their tracks. That's it. And maybe we don't have to get involved. But again, if, let's say, this is all PSYOP and actually Iran they're able to retaliate and we see more missiles fly, do we feel like there's a responsibility? At what point do you feel like the United States should get involved?
Well, Trump's already said that he's going to continue to send them weapons. So, I mean, the tweet that we read was there's more on the way. So I don't see anything stopping the U.S. from funding, supplying weapons, that kind of thing.
And this is even
boots on the ground will not happen.
I was about to touch on that, where the United States, it seems like, and again, maybe it's just a small portion of the internet I'm reading, but it seems like no one in the United States is really that interested in external wars anymore. We really just want to focus on ourselves. But
I won't say nobody. We got plenty of
neocons, all these people, they want, I'm sure there's a whole war machine happening in the background.
But your
to me,
average person,
average citizen is just like, I have problems at home. My backyard's, burning. Like, why do we have to look at this again? And this goes back into, there's obviously a reason. It seems like Israel's trying to pull the U.S. into this more and more because, I mean, I'm sure we're the strongest ally.
Your big brother is Goliath. So you're like, roll up to the party. If they could get us in on this, they obviously would. There was information coming out a couple weeks ago where people were saying that Bibi Netanyahu was trying to pressure Trump into joining in a strike on Iran and that Trump was resisting. That was all behind the scenes, so I certainly didn't hear anything. Rubio went way out of his way to be like, they acted unilaterally. We did not have anything to do with this. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out over time, because sure, it's entirely possible that Trump and Bibi Netanyahu sat down and were like, okay, listen, I'm going to try to get a deal done, but if I can't, fucking blast them. It's possible. Now, honestly, that isn't my read on the situation right now, but it's certainly within the realm of believability. If that comes out, then this becomes a very different political hot potato.
Do you think there's actually, if let's say we were Israel, is there any way we can get, let's say, the American people to show more support and actually be like, no, we're going to fully...
The average American citizen?
Yeah, how can they convert, let's say if I was Israel trying to figure out, because we know American citizens like, I don't want to touch that.
It's very simple. You got to get your victim card back.
Okay.
America loves a victim. Right now,
Israel is
where culture is, we're going to be, culture is going to default be on the side of whoever's the victim. Right now, Israel is perceived as the bully. And so as long as they're perceived as the bully, you're not going to get them on your side. If you can get back to victim status, then you've got a shot. But we're pretty far gone. Like, this is one of those times anti-Semitism is rearing up again. And when that happens, man, historically, people have just been like, fucking put them in ghettos, lock them up, kill them, whatever. Like, it's nuts. This is one of the things that started me thinking about this whole problem, is I didn't realize how recently Jews all across Europe were relegated by law in ghettos, like apartheid states. Obviously, I knew about Germany. I knew what shook down there during World War II. I had no idea that that was like the default in the 1800s, was just like, yeah, you don't have full rights. What? I literally did not know that. So the world has shown a historical willingness to lock them up. I mean, I don't even know what word to say. So you only want to lose so many people.
And so, again, as someone who has never really been that into politics, but now it just feels like it's always in front of me and I'm just, getting this information. Again, I just want to focus on care about my family, business, all this type of stuff. But when I hear about the fact that maybe there's external influences trying to influence the US government, this goes back into, AI PAC and all these type of things. There's money in the system. When you look at that, do you see that as they have an outsized influence on us? Is this, they're just like every other, PAC and there's nothing fishy going on here? Or
it's probably, there's two elements to it. And if you're trying to judge what the influence is, it would be amount of money.
Okay.
So big pharma going to have huge impact. And I'm not sure who outspends who, but I think it's big pharma.
Yes.
But so you've got big pharma, huge impact. APAC, as far as I know, is one of the biggest. So that's going to be huge. But that's more about money. So the money amount becomes amplitude. Then personal relationships, that's going to matter. So who's good at like just being somebody that you like to golf with or whatever, go to Epstein's Island with. I wish that shit weren't real. But like that's going to matter. And then I think cultural alliances will also matter, meaning I recognize your value system. And so I feel a connection to you because, hey, we don't look alike. We didn't grow up in the same place. We have different accents, but when I look at you from a cultural perspective, I'm like, oh, like I get this person. I think those three things, when you put them together, are probably ultimately what controls it. And so does that end up meaning that APAC has a second only to big pharma sized impact on policy? It might. This is where I'm like,
enough allied interests. Like again, I think there's like huge groups of like Christians for Israel or whatever. So there's just enough support within America that maybe they do get slightly more outsized influence because it's already aligned potentially. That being said, I think it goes back to are they a victim or do they actually have special privileges? And I'm trying to look at that. So for example, when I first saw this, news break out, I was like, if any other country acted like Israel in this situation, would the US be giving them as much support? So for example, and this goes into, I love the way you kind of look at preemptive strikes. And I think, would you call this a preemptive strike? And if so, I'll create these scenarios of other nations doing this, and you will let me know, do you think the US will have a similar viewing of this? So first of all, do you see this as a preemptive strike? And do you kind of say they should not have done it? Or do you actually accept? You could use, hypotheticals, because obviously you're saying if
I don't have the data. Okay. I don't have the data. There's no way to.
So let's say for sure they have enriched uranium. They were going to, in the next couple months, create warheads.
Yeah, you got to hit them.
Got it. And let's say now, in my hypothetical, South Korea, we have treaties with them. We fought, in the war with them. North Korea, they are developing their missiles. They are testing them. They're doing all that. And South Korea is like, hey, I'm going to strike all your nuclear sites.
Before they get weapons?
Yeah, let's say just to make it equal.
They probably should have, yeah.
Okay. So you were thinking if South Korea did that, the US actually would have been, good job, South Korea. We support that.
I don't know enough about our relations at that time to know if that would have made any sense. But yes, in terms of we should be keeping, like, the peeps that already have nukes, unfortunately, that game is over. But you don't want to see more people become nuclear. And I think the world should work very hard to ensure that that doesn't happen. But when you have people that in their charter, they're like, we're going to kill you. Like if America had in its charter that we were going to eradicate Canada, I think people should be really fucking concerned about that. So yeah, when you've got people that state, it's like almost entirely. So that is why I'm like, yeah, I get why Israel would be like, you've told me that you want to kill me. I'm going to take your word for it. Therefore, I'm going to act in this way. Now, whether that's actually why they attacked at this moment, that I don't know. So it could be amazing cover story. Right. Like, hey, Iran, if instead of banging the drum that we're going to take the Jews out, like, God, I hate to give good advice to bad people, but just fucking keep your mouth shut. And then just do it. Like, don't fucking broadcast and tell people what you're going to do so that they can arm up against you. That's crazy. So this is where Israel, man, love them or hate them. Like the whole thing they did with the pagers. If they really did build sites inside of Iran, like, it's gangster.
Got it.
It's gangster. And as an intelligence agency, you need to be impressed by that. You don't have to like them.
Yep.
You can fucking hate the outcome. You can say that this is the most immoral thing that's ever happened. But from a military perspective, you got to be like, yo, there's something to learn from that.
And this is where
Which, by the way, hi, China. I see you buying farmland in the U.S. So, hey.
Yep. Definitely something to, again, keep in mind in our backyard. That being said, I think part of this is, it seems like, obviously I'm just reading, popular tweets, but this one kind of came up, if we want to share that, where this is supposedly the history of Netanyahu's Iran nuclear bomb claim. So when I look at this as just a random citizen who has not as much information, I'm kind of like, is this just all a psyop? Is this, again, just a reason he's just going to keep telling us this quote unquote truth, but it's actually a lie and they're not even close. And that lets them do the attack they wanted to do.
Yeah, this is why when you're trying to answer this question, the politicians that are actually behind the scenes and have the real information, unfortunately, you're going to have to trust what they're doing. Otherwise, you run this as a thought experiment and you say, okay, if this is true, then one ought to act this way. If this is true, then one ought to act that way. Certainly as the commentariat, that's what I feel is where I can journal out loud, try to think through these very difficult things, base them on my values so I can articulate why I believe what I believe. I can check to see if I'm being consistent. And my hope is that the people listening right now, and we should be looking because I'm seeing stuff go by in the chat that's pretty interesting, but that's where I think I can be useful to chat. I don't expect anybody to just go, oh, Tom says this, I'm going to adopt it. But I want chat to use me the way that I use other people who think out loud. And that is to encounter those ideas with my own mind, try to understand where they're coming from, see if they have a more accurate map of the territory. And if they do, then I will adopt that way of thinking. And it came through a while ago, so I don't even know if he's still in the feed, but there's a guy named Frank2222. Frank, if you're still there. So he said earlier, Tom voted for Trump, so he has to like defend his position.
Yeah, he has a bias to defend or explain or
yeah. So just as a PSA, that just isn't how I view the world. So when you can trust somebody to be selfish, then you can trust that they're probably saying the truth. So what are the things that motivate me? So I want to accumulate a ton of capital. So there are things that I want to build that require capital. I like being rich. It's a lot of fun. Money is the great facilitator, as I call it. It lets you do things. Okay, so if you know you can trust me to be selfish in that way, I'm going to try to play the game. Now for me, I want to respect myself, so I'm going to do it within what I consider ethical guidelines. So I'm never going to do something that takes advantage of somebody else. I'm only going to sell products I believe in and stand behind, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, I'm going to try to win at that game. And that means what life has taught me is that means I have to constantly make contact with what is true. And that defending a position that I had previously is not likely. This again is life has shown me. If I'm trying to defend a position so that I can be right, which that's when somebody's incentivized because they've tied their ego to being right, then yeah, I get why you would do that. But that isn't my goal. My ego's tied to my willingness to stare nakedly at my inadequacies. For longtime listeners, they will have heard me say that to death. So the reason that I build my sense of pride around my willingness to stare nakedly at my inadequacies is what I mean by that is I identify the places that I'm not good enough to reach my goal. So it's like, okay, cool. I've identified that thing I have to get better at. So if I have mismapped the way the world works, relationship, but like if I end up going, ooh, Trump was a mistake, then it's like, oh, okay, cool. Was there a way that I could have seen it I don't believe that, by the way. Okay. But if I did, I would go, okay, Trump was a mistake. What could I do better next time so I can see it at the time? Because at the time, for sure, I was like, this is the right play of my admittedly horrible options. But it was the one that I viewed the least horrible for reasons I've talked about endlessly. But anyway, now I am not on Team Trump. And I think it's a mistake for people to say I cast a vote for somebody and therefore I'm on their team. That to me is not what voting is. To me, voting is right now in this snapshot of time, this is the person that I think is most likely to lead me to my goals.
Right.
But once you're out of speculation and you're into execution, now it's about the thing they're doing either is working or it's not. Or if you feel like they're broken from a values perspective, then it's like, well, they're broken from a values perspective and that's a fucking problem. And you just start addressing the realities. And again, you can trust me to do that out of a selfish desire to understand how the world actually works.
So on that note, let's use that as a mile marker. I think one of the main promises that Trump ran on is no new wars. If ultimately this
not doing very good at that.
So you're saying I will give him red marks on that.
Obviously.
Okay.
This looks like it's going to be a proper war between Iran. So I was joking with somebody this morning and I was like, bro, if you say one more time, that war wouldn't have started while I was here. It's like, this one did.
Yeah, how many?
So that holds no more credibility for me. I bet he's still going to say it, which is crazy. But that feels like red meat to his base. Now, people for whom I'm on your team and I just want to hear the certainty, as you were saying
I think you're
yesterday.
doing good if people in the chat are both saying you have TDS and also you're like the
Oh yeah, I've been called he's a Zionist shill, and I've had people say he's a Nazi. So
Right.
yay.
So in some ways we can also use that as a marker. But do you also think this is just the time that Trump came into where even if he says no new wars, it's not really in his power. There are going to be wars. We are in, I would say, the decade of chaos. Just like how when we were talking about the world's getting more digital every single day, I'm just seeing more and more proof that the world's getting more chaotic every single day, right?
Bro, this is so inevitable.
Okay.
It's so inevitable. Now, you know my punchline. Chat knows my punchline, but I'll say it just for fun. This is a debt problem. This is a debt problem. This is a very predictable cycle. And you can't put the whole world into that camp, but boy, can you put a lot of it. So the next 10 years for me are about debt and values. What happens is the debt burden finally becomes truly unbearable, which it is. And then we are being asked to answer the question, are you so liberal that you will invite in illiberal people who will use your liberal nature against you to take over by numbers? And this is where I will remind people of what America did to Native Americans. We just took that shit over. I mean, admittedly, we killed a lot with smallpox. So we probably don't have, nobody has that like tool in their toolkit. So it's going to be harder. But like, look at what happened to form Israel. Hey guys, we need a bunch of you to come over here. Well, we got to amass political and economic power. And if we do that, then we can take it over. That was the plan, obviously. So it's like, I'm just saying, I'm not here for it, but that is what is going to be asked of the Western nations who have completely lost their testicles. Like, we do not believe in ourselves anymore. And because we don't believe in ourselves, like, it's just, we're not standing for anything.
And we're in a weird situation because we were kind of seen as the police force. We're the ones drawing the lines of like, hey, don't do this, you can't do that. And we're kind of doing that. But now it seems like the U.S. is kind of taking, again, these new wars are
really fast. Hey, make sure you're interrupting if things are being said in chat. So by the way, everybody, we've got Mason. Mason is the new Eunice.
What's up,
and
everybody?
God damn, is he quiet. And when he said that he wanted to do this, I was like, are you sure you're actually going to make sounds? And 45 minutes in, I didn't even know you were breathing. So if you see something come through in the chat, your job is to fight for chat. If chat is saying something that's like, hey, we need to address this, grab it. Don't feed the trolls. But if somebody has a legitimate criticism, let's hear about it. If somebody has an add-on point or whatever. But like, I want to make sure chat knows. Chat is the reason that we're here. Yeah. So let's make sure that we stay high engagement with our beloved chat. Chat, thank you for being here. We love you guys. Alejandro's cheering for you, Mason. Sorry, you were saying.
You know, I was just thinking, we used to be the ones kind of setting the standard of like what should be done or not be done. But it almost seems like things are getting past what we can hold together because, again, the world is getting more chaotic.
Yeah.
And in that world, I used to think, oh yeah, no more wars, we're in this peacetime. But as things are kind of firing back up, the fourth turning, all these things are all coming together. What can America do in this situation? Because should we just continue to
Can was a very interesting choice of words. Okay, so if I were teaching an entrepreneur, the first thing I would ask is, what's your goal? So what can America do to what? Remain the world's policeman, be the top dog, make sure that we're economically, militarily, and culturally in control?
What does it mean to be number one?
To be economically, militarily, and culturally in control, for sure.
So,
and now can is a very odd word. So I'm going to sidestep that, and I say, what should we do if we want to actually achieve that? We must drag this country back to the middle, plain and simple. If we cannot find a way to meet in the middle, divide and conquer, divide and conquer. Like, if I'm your enemy, I'm looking at this and I'm fucking laughing, and I'm gonna create an app that has a killer algorithm, and I'm gonna launch it in your country, and I'm gonna fuck with you. I might call it like Licklock or something like that. And I'm going to make sure that that division continues apace. because if I can get you guys to tear each other apart from the inside, like so many empires before you, that will create an opening for us. And the problem is that debt is the physics of the situation. And we have $36 trillion in debt and climbing, and worse, an economy that literally at the level of physics mandates that you keep accumulating more debt. So the only question is, can we slow the debt down? To stop accumulating debt, we would have to change our financial system. Watch my deep dive on The Creature from Jekyll Island. If you think that I'm being hyperbolic, that is just literally true. So people just don't understand how money works. So they can feel that something is wrong. They know the system is broken. They know that it's desperately broken. They just look at the wrong thing to try to fix it. And so I have a feeling the way that people think about the problem with money is the same way that people think about amyloid plaque in the brain with Alzheimer's. They look at somebody with Alzheimer's, they look inside their brain, they see plaque, and they're like, that's the problem. So people look at our economy, they see billionaires, and they say, that's the problem. But that's not it. The billionaires become billionaires through a very simple mechanism. And that mechanism is they own shares in something. And shares skyrocket when you print money. It's all an illusion, but nonetheless.
How does this come back to money printing? Because there's multiple people in the chat bringing that up. And then I've also heard you say in the past that war is one of the ways to deal with the debt problem. And so can you explain that bit? How does war actually help us get out of it?
Okay, so war, let's separate war, revolution, and rebellion, revolt, civil war. External war is just good business. You're employing a lot of people, and so you now have a reason for your economy to boom. And if you're the one selling weapons to somebody else, you're in a really good place. War is also good for people who lend money. So the banking class, just to round it to something, will do very well in a war because there's going to be so much need for financing. Government bureaucracies do well in times of war because people panic, they're scared, and it allows them to grab power. If you don't understand man as economic animal or as political animal, you will be very confused that the people who rise to power like that, like they fucking love power. They like power the way that I like ice cream and sex. Like they for real though. And I think that this is evolutionarily hardwired into us. And so there are certain people, they are built for that. And then society has optimized them on top of their natural inclination towards it. And so they will gobble up power in any way, shape, or form that they can. This was 2020. Like what happened was crazy. It was crazy. And if you have the impulse to be like, I'm right, and I so know I'm right, that I'm going to force everybody to do my thing, you're broken. You're broken. You don't know how things work. That's why, listen, I'll say it again so people can accurately map me. I want to be convincing. I don't necessarily want to convince. I want to be a voice that people, like, for a moment, let inside their brain and go, does that have predictive validity? And if no, then reject and move on. And if yes, or some part of it yes, and some part of it no, take the part that works, discard the part that doesn't. Like, that to me is ultimately how you move forward and make this work. So how does this tie back to the printing of money? It depends on which part of all of this you're talking about. So civil war impacts debt because you kill the half that owns your debt. So let's say that you're in credit card debt for $80,000 and you're like, oh my God, I'm drowning. You have $150,000 in college debt and the government won't let you discharge it. Guess how you can get them to let you discharge it? You go to the White House and you put people's heads in a guillotine. Now, the thing is, I'm not kidding. And historically, that's what people do. It's not always the guillotine, but it is dead. They make you graveyard dead. And if you make enough people graveyard dead, then you get to tip the tables and you say, we're now in control and all that money that you owed, you owe nothing anymore. Now you can imagine if people go to a populace that is drowning in debt, as our population is, and you say, hey, by the way, do you guys want me to try to do how it will actually play out?
Yes.
It will be less simplified. Okay, I'm going to try. Speed run. Your job is to, if I leave loose ends, Okay, the way that it works, let's look at Iran, since we're talking about Iran. 1978 to 9, there's a revolution in Iran, and it looks something like this. You have a religious leader who is exiled because there are all these, he becomes too extreme for the more pro-Western voices, the more secular voices in Iran. He goes, spends a bunch of time in France. I think he also spends time in Iraq, whatever, it doesn't matter. He's outside the country, but he keeps making, I think, like audio cassettes of him like preaching about the way that things ought to be, that Sharia law ought to be the law, and that's what it should be. Back in Iran, you have a bunch of people that are dissatisfied with a pro-Western government that many of them think were basically put there by the US, that we've become a US puppet, and things break economically. The second things break economically, you are fucked. Because when people have a lot of money and their kids' lives are going to be better than their lives, everything is fine. The second that people are struggling financially, they push back. So they start pushing back like crazy. The Shah, basically a king, he ends up getting forced into exile. The second he's forced into exile, this guy that had been kicked out, whatever, 15 years earlier, the religious cleric, comes back, and I'm definitely making a long story short, he comes back and takes over the government, kills anybody who dissents. Some people say up to like 20,000 dissidents over years. It's not like day one, but ends up killing all these dissidents and then forces people culturally to adopt Sharia law, and it just becomes a totally different place. And in all of that upheaval, when a country is burdened by debt, you just wipe everything out because the old government is gone. So it's like you'll say to other countries, we're not going to pay back that debt. That was the previous government. That's not who we are anymore. This is who we are now. We're starting from scratch. And it's rocky, don't get me wrong, because people don't like it when you don't pay their debt. But you can start building back up. But you have to build up in a populist way. You've got to get people to really rally behind you because you're in terrible economic circumstances. And so this is how extreme rulers come into power. This is the playbook that Hitler ran. It was like, oh, everything's really bad. Fuck those guys. We're not going to adhere to the Treaty of Versailles. Debt. We're not going to pay that debt anymore. It also stops us from building a military. Nope, fuck those guys. We're going to build our own military. And so putting people to work, all that stuff. And in all of that, you literally at some point just say, fuck you, I'm not paying your debt. Mm-hmm. And you've got the will of the people behind you because you've just had this big coup. Hey, let's take Napoleon. Exact same fucking thing. The French are sick of it. Let them eat cake. Theoretically, she never said it, but whatever. You're killing all the nobles, the elites. You just fucking kill them. And then it's like, okay, well, who's going to run society now? You get a strong man, Napoleon, Hitler, Khomeini, whoever, but you get a strong man. They come in, they're like, I've got the vision. I know exactly what we need to do. And a big part of it is always fuck you to the people that we owe money to. Mm. And so now everything just resets, but you need that violence. Like people have to be so angry, so fed up, so desperate for it to end, to get back to normalcy, that they're like, fine, I'm not going to complain about the fact that if I'm internal, I'm not going to complain about the fact that I lost money because I would rather be alive and broke than dead and right. So it's just, this is the part, realpolitik becomes like very contentious and people argue it. I don't understand the position from which people argue this. Mm. The strong will do as they will in certain moments. And in those moments, the weak will suffer as they must because they can't stop them. Mm. And so we're all like just caught up in these waves of cultural energy that move through the medium of humans. And when you're on the side that's out of power, you just get run over.
So on Wednesday, you mentioned a second part, which was that war gives you a reason to print money that doesn't actually end up inflating. I'm paraphrasing. Did I misunderstand that?
Yes.
Or
yeah, so printing for war is always going to inflate the currency. The nuance, talking about this is the one, every time I go to say it, I'm like, I should just not tell people. So I'll, out of moral obligation. But this is where it starts getting confusing. Okay, cue chat. Chat. My most vociferous haters. I'm going to give you the thing you love the most. Deflation is good.
I agree.
Deflation,
yes,
is good. Every time I say that, people come out of the woodwork screaming, deflation will be the death of us. This guy's a fucking idiot. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Economics.
And so I will just say there's two types of deflation, and one is bad. Crisis-led deflation, where people are too afraid to spend money, that's bad. But deflation is the natural course of things because we get better at producing things. Computers get cheaper. You can buy more for the same price, which is deflationary, which means you could buy an old model for way less. You should want that. But you'll notice you don't get to reap the advantages of that. And so the question becomes, yeah, why not? Like if deflation is real, why does the price of everything go up? And why is there a 0.9 correlation between prices going up and the printing of money? Huh, that's weird. What the government is saying when they say we're going to aim for 2% inflation is that we are going to eat up all of the innovation plus 2%. Mm-hmm. So all of the deflation that you should have been able to take advantage of, we, the government, as a matter of policy, are going to take that. But because people don't understand it, and because they're actually afraid of deflation, they've made us afraid of prices going down. It's fucking brilliant. It's crazy, absurd, but brilliant. They eat all of that up plus 2%. And sometimes 25%. But who's counting?
Crazy.
So what I'm talking about with it isn't a straight one-for-one dollar print. Like you don't print $1 and prices go up by $1 because of innovation, because what makes the prices go up is that you have more physical cash for the same number of goods. But what happens if you have more physical cash and there's more goods? Prices don't go up. But you have to have more goods for the same cost. So your equipment gets more efficient. People get more efficient. And because of that, then there's like a balancing effect that you can put a certain amount of money into the system before you start creating inflation. And it's one of those, now you start getting into the complexities and it just goes crazy. Yes, and that is correct. Alejandro, you are correct. No Keynesian economist would agree with me. And that's because they're dumb.
MMT.
We're living in their world. We're living in their world. You cannot both be on the side of Keynesian economics and be mad that the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. So if you're like, dude, the rich getting rich and the poor getting poor is fucking dope, then cool, sign up for Keynesian economics. And I'm going to point them to your fucking house when they revolt because they will. They will. History makes that abundantly clear.
I want to go back to, again, if we're talking about if war is one potential way out of this debt cycle.
Oh, I hate the way you said that.
I just said one. I'm going to give you the other one.
Yes.
But actually, I want to touch us on this quote from Henry Kissinger. Some people were mentioning him in the chat, but one of the quotes I've read from him that really kind of I agree with and opened my eyes was, who controls the food supply controls the people, who controls the energy can control whole continents, and who controls the money can control the world. It rings true to me. Mm-hmm. And if we understand that money, debt, all of this is all part of this larger cycle, and it's a pattern, you know how it ends. I want to see us get out of it without obviously going to war.
Yep.
But it seems like if that is the most likely path, one, I want to know what I can do as an individual to survive that carnage. But if there is another path, I'd like for you to kind of set that up also. So we can also have a North Star to even, maybe it's just all of us in the chat.
Do you want to talk at the level of society or the individual?
I would love both, but.
Okay, so if I end up spending so much time on society that I forget the individual, please reprompt.
Will do.
Okay, at the society level, you have to re-harden your money. You're not going to do it instantly, but you have to get your debt down. So Ray Dalio, Scott Bessent, they're both preaching that you can't be more than 3% of your GDP, I believe is the number that they talk about. So we've got to get to that number because once you're above that number, which we are right now, I think we're like 6%. Once you're at that level, you get into runaway interest payments. And so interest payments swallow everything. And this is my frustration with Big Beautiful Bill is that you're asking for $5 trillion more in debt ceiling. We will spend that money. That is a signal that you're not in any way, shape, or form trying to slow the car down. If you don't, the car being the rate at which we take on debt. If you don't slow that down, all you do is drive off the cliff faster. Now, for a politician, that might be fine because you won't be in office. You're not trying to get elected anymore. So whatever, it's somebody else's problem. But like, this feels so weird to me that I worry more about kids, and I don't have kids, than people who have kids. I'm like, dude, think of the fucking kids. They're going to live in this world. That is insane. So forcing the next generation, or if you think it's way off into the future, the next generation to deal with this, to me, is immoral. So we have to re-harden the money by slowing down the accumulation of debt and beginning to re-back, starting partially. So in 1971, people know we broke, Nixon broke the US dollar from the gold standard. But what many people don't realize, it was not 100% backed by gold at that time. It was already fractional. So you got to stop that. So, or you're going to start with that, but the goal would be to ultimately make your way back to purely backed. So you're going to have gold, you're going to have silver, you're going to have Bitcoin. Those are all either uninflatable in the case of Bitcoin or very hard to inflate in the case of metal. You have to fight against your government. This is now just bias, but I'll finish the sentence. You have to fight against your government getting control of your money. Technically, that's not inflationary, but fuck, is it dangerous? Set that aside because that was personal. You're going to re-harden your money. You're going to stop deficit spending. I think you need to listen to Alexander Hamilton, who said, as a nation, if you take on debt, you can only take it on if you have a plan. Like, you actually say, this is what we're going to do to pay this money back, and we're going to pay it back by that date. Because debt is awesome. You want sensible debt. You want, it's leverage. There's a reason they call debt leverage. When somebody says that they have leverage, all they mean is debt. But what that requires is that when you take out the debt, let's say it has 3% interest, that you can make more than that in whatever you do with that money. So if you can borrow money at 3% and invest money and get a 5% return, you just made a 2% arbitrage. And this is one of the ways that people that really know their shit get rich. This is exactly Michael Saylor's strategy with buying all the Bitcoin in the world. He buys it all on leverage, but Bitcoin has been going up historically so much faster than the interest he has to pay on the loans.
So ultimately, on the societal level, we reset our dollar like the Bretton Woods Agreement, but let's do it back on something hard. That could be the mix of gold, silver, Bitcoin. And then I'll break it into the individual. First, give me your chances. What are the chances that we either reset the debt by carnage, war, and then you give me your chances of how do we reset the debt due to rehardening the money? Give me your percentages of which path. Unless there's like a third path I'm not aware of, but if those are the two main paths, give me the percentages.
You're at 99.9% that you do it through pain and suffering. So it's possible that when we can't pay, so here's how it will play out, 99.9% odds. Interest becomes so high that the U.S. defaults on its debt. What people don't realize is when the U.S. defaults on its debt, sure, 40% of the people that suffer are foreign, 60% are Americans. Americans won't take that sitting down. They will freak the fuck out. And if we're rioting over, I don't like the way you're deporting people, there's a famous quote, I'm going to paraphrase it, we're only 3 meals away from anarchy. Meaning, when people get hungry, nothing matters anymore. Please read the books, The Red Famine, Tombstone, and Mao, The Untold Story. When you read those books, and I know that I am notorious for saying this, you're going to hear stories over and over and over of people eating their own children, because that's what people do when they get hungry enough. So what ends up happening is you are no longer paying your entitlements because you can't. You are no longer paying back. The government will have stolen money from its own citizens who loan the government money on what they call a risk-free basis. The government is supposed to be the safest place to park your money. And so you loan your money to the government so the government can deficit spend. And so you do it to like, hey, I'm going to loan you this money so that you can pay for entitlements and things like the military, whatever. But it's mostly entitlements. So I'm going to loan you that money. And then one day the government says, we're just not able to pay these back. And so then overnight, everyone pulls out of their bonds and the government can no longer raise money. that means, and this is another complexity in the system, that means that when you want to deficit spend, now you have to print 100% of the money. There isn't a single dollar that's already in circulation that will go into that, which is way better because that's not inflationary. But it becomes inflationary when the buyer of last resort suddenly becomes the only buyer, which is exactly what happens when they default on their debt. Or they may do that to avoid defaulting on their debt. So that's a slight variant on the theme. It will have the same outcome, but let's say they don't default on their debt, but they just inflate. Because nobody will buy the bonds. So if nobody buys the bonds, even if you're still, as the government, paying people back their money, you're doing it by creating money out of thin air, which is like pouring water in the coffee. So all of a sudden you have a cup full of slightly discolored water. And that's when it like takes a wheelbarrow full of dollars to buy a loaf of bread. And it just, these aren't sci-fi words. This is what happens. This happens over and over and over throughout history.
So again, now as an individual, when I hear that, I thought you were going to give me something hopeful, like 80% chance of the carnage and then 20%.
I don't, it does not seem accurate to the human mind.
I agree. So now I'm even just saying for myself, for my family, for my future, if you were actually telling me that there's this tsunami of carnage coming, what can I do in that moment to prepare myself? Do I have to get a bunker? Do I have to like start making alliances for food? And
so I don't think that this ends in a permanent dystopia. It ends in a 3-year civil war, and it's not fun, and millions will die. And I don't envy any of us that have to live through that. And obviously I hope that it can be avoided. And if you were asking me a different question, I would just switch my mind to how do we be the 0.1% chance that we have to like pull this off.
And
I am by nature a very optimistic person.
Most likely you'll be fine.
You're not going to walk out into a nuclear winter. Like that would be an outcome I just absolutely do not predict.
Because my mind was, rolling around in this of like, what are the chances? Similar to you, I was like, it seems almost guaranteed that we're going to have some form of violence popping off. To reset in some way. And I was just doing research of like the French Revolution, what did that look like? The US Civil War, what did that look like? And when I looked at the percentages, about 3 to 4% of the populace in the French Revolution died due to that revolution. And it's like, okay, seems high or whatever, but actually maybe I'm fine. And then I just like flipped the numbers and I said, that's like 1 in 25 people. We have 25 people right here. Imagine one of us just dies.
Yeah.
And that made it way more real to me. And even in the Civil War, I think it was like 2 to 3%. That's still like 1 in 50, 1 in 33. And I just have to be like, that just, I don't know, somehow made it really real. And that's where I go into, does my mind start spiraling? Do I have to spend 20% of my mental energy of like, how do I protect myself and all of that? Like,
you
does
certainly
it ever
have
hit
to
you in that
spend,
way,
yeah, of course. I think about this a lot, especially because I'm in LA.
And you are one of the quote unquote,
oh yeah, I'm both moderate and wealthy. So good luck.
Increased chances.
Yeah, I am on the get him first bingo card.
Just out of my
Thank you,
curiosity.
Jason. I was scared for a second. Yeah.
How do you think about that? I mean, this might get too personal, so you
No, I don't mind. Yeah. I'm not going to give a whole lot of details, but it is passports ready to go, countries that you can go to if you need to go, and making sure that your finances are as liquid as possible. I am now beginning to explore having my money in a jurisdiction that is far more friendly to personal property than I think the US will be if it breaks. And holding out hope for America and knowing that we absolutely need to spend time today and every other day reminding ourselves that each and every person that's in this room with me, you guys are awesome. I love you guys. Hopefully we never have to leave. Like, let's just make sure that we somehow find that narrow path through. And the only thing that will close the door 100% is if you only focus on the way that things can go wrong. Part of the reason that I come on and do this is, again, I hope to help people map how the world works so that we can avoid that kind of thing. My hope is that enough people go, oh, okay, wait a second. The real problem here is printing money. Oh, okay, cool. At least if we know what the problem is, we can address the real problem rather than doing the sort of emotionally satisfying thing, getting caught up in an emotional story and trying to back out of that slowly. So that would be the hope.
And if I'm channeling, let's say, the general, because even me, as someone who is very more on the side of I want to be optimistic. I can take control of my life. Want to hear that? Let's say you're just being pragmatic. Like you're like, I will have to, for what's best for me and my family, I'll have to do these steps. But let's say I'm the mom who is working 2 jobs and I can't think about where my money in my Swiss bank account and not, like what hope do I have? How do I not feel just this envy and get actually even more mad at the elites or the rich people? Oh, they're just gonna leave us when shit hits the fan, but I'm still gonna get, slaughtered.
Yep.
So it's like, that just, again, it just seems to make it worse.
Yes.
Even though it's the most pragmatic.
This is why things escalate. This is why countries do capital controls. If you don't move fast enough, then they're like, psych, we gotcha. And they will keep your money. All right, red light. And then plus I asked Jackie a question to which I would like you to pay attention and see if she answers.
Gotcha. We got a $20 super chat from JDO.
Let's go, JDO.
Super chat.
Deals. If we have no reason to trust the side you are negotiating with, stated that they hate you over decades before and after taking U.S. hostages, and stated publicly they wish genocide on another group, how do you get a deal?
Okay, so you get a deal by making sure that your selfish desires are aligned. So, and whoever asked if I own my own guns, yes, which I never thought I would need to, but boy, oh boy, 5 years ago proved that I did. So that's how, like, you just have to align your selfish desires. So we could do a deal with China. We could do a deal with Iran if the other side can actually be aligned with us. The thing is, they may care about something from a religious standpoint that we just can't map to, where it's like, if you really believe God wills it, like you are commanded by God to get rid of all the people in that country, then it's like, all I have to offer you is economics. And if you're like, I don't give a fuck about economics, blast us back to the Stone Age. I don't give a shit. Like, my mission is to kill these motherfuckers. So it's like, it just becomes a question of, is that what's motivating them? Don't know. And if there really is, they've had like 5 uprisings in the last 20 years or something. And so if there really is a secular movement happening inside of Iran and they really do want to modernize, then hey, maybe this is all for naught. And look, it's however many years that they were in power, 50-ish. Tough. Wouldn't want to be a secular person in Iran during that time, but on a long enough time scale, if the grand arc of history really does bend towards justice, then we'll come out the other side and it'll be great. But anyway, you have to align selfish desires. That is the
Jackie Gonzalez is back. She said, I think, and it just moved. There it is. Nope.
So Jackie had asked, she had said, anybody that has $1 million or more, take 20%. I think that's fair. And my question was, how is that fair?
Yep. And she said, I think it's fair because if you have $1 million or more, why wouldn't you want your country to be better? Why wouldn't you want it to have good school, good health care? You have enough money.
Who said that I don't want it to be better? Who said that I don't want there to be rad healthcare? You are conflating two things. So Jackie, a big part of the reason that I would think that was revenue that's already been taxed. So let's start with that. So paying tax on it, yeah. And to be honest, I've paid more than 20% on my money. So now I'm reading this as you want another 20% of my post-tax wealth. And so that's where I say, okay, that gets, not only is it unfair, it's just dumb. And the reason it's dumb, and I'm not saying you're dumb, I'm saying it's a dumb idea because you have an inefficient system and your answer to a bucket that is leaking water everywhere is to just keep pouring the ocean into it. And I'm saying, how about we plug the holes in the bucket? And if you plug the holes in the bucket, you will find that you don't need to keep confiscating money from people, which disincentivizes people to work hard. And the fact is, there are people that have not been willing to work like I work. And listen, I won't lie, both luck and genetics have played a role in my success. I get it. But nonetheless, I've worked 93 hours on average for 20 plus years. It's been a lot of lonely mornings. You know what time I started working today? 1:50 a.m. I bet most people don't want to join me. And so fair enough. I get why people wouldn't want to live my life, but don't be mad that I get a different result.
She did come back with that and say, no, Tom, I don't want another 20%. If you pay 20%, I don't have a problem with that. I think you did your fair share, Tom.
Yeah, I think people have a hard time mapping that wealth is very different than money in the bank. And so wealth, when people start talking about trying to tax wealth, that is economic illiteracy. And so this is one of the big reasons that I was up in arms about Kamala Harris. She just doesn't understand money. She doesn't understand money. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy.
We've also got an interesting bit from one of our own, George, in the chat.
Our own Yorios?
Yes.
What's up, George?
If China is using Iran to overextend the U.S. on the world stage, would they allow them to actually use nukes on Israel? Doesn't seem like incentives align for China.
Well, so is China going to get involved? My gut instinct is China's going to stay away from this. How involved are they behind the scenes? I don't know. And I don't know who to believe in terms of China's viability right now. So you've got some people that are like, oh my God, like these guys, they are our peer in every way, strong economy. They're going to slap us around in this whole tariff thing. It's going to be a bloodbath for us because China's so powerful. And then you've got other people that are like, China is literally months away from just absolute total economic collapse. And if that's true, then they're not going to have the wherewithal to fuck around. My gut is it's probably somewhere in the middle. I would actually be a little surprised if China and the U.S. use Israel-Iran as a proxy flirtation. I don't think it would ever go all the way to proxy war. But if they use it as a way to like test each other out, toss some jabs, I wouldn't be surprised. So we'll see. But I'm not expecting China to get involved in a big way. This really does seem to be about nuclear weapons. And I don't think China wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. So that's a gut instinct, feelings, out over my skis, do not have the evidence to back that up. But that would be my instinct. I don't see how China benefits from Iran having nuclear weapons. So given that, that does not feel like a selfish desires are aligned kind of thing. I have a feeling China's going to keep out of it. But I don't know. They could have a tighter relationship with Iran than I'm aware of.
I want to touch back on the whole like debt situation. As you know, that is kind of one of your core theses on like money printing. I think Tracy, I'm going to see if I could find their comment. And this goes back to, again, you're not on a team, but when you do see Trump, let me see if I could find her quote. I'm going to add it to the broadcast. So Tracy says, Tom, Trump already said he's okay with defaulting on our national debt during a debate with Hillary Clinton. Do you really think he even cares about running it up? And to support,
obviously not.
To support that, I think we shared this previously. Maybe you guys already talked about it, but there was that Truth Social ultimate tweet that got reposted, which is, I'm very pleased to announce that after all these years, I agree with Senator Elizabeth Warren on something. The debt limit should be entirely scrapped to prevent an economic catastrophe, which is interesting because I'm sure you heavily disagree. It is
what gave me away.
Is too devastating to be put in the hands of political people that may want to use it despite the horrendous effect it could have on our country and even on the world. As to Senator Warren's second statement on the $4 trillion, I like that also, but it would have to be done over time, short as possible. Let's get this together, Republican, Democrat, blah, blah, blah. So, this is your one issue, and your board.
Everybody keeps saying that. I am not a one-issue voter. I'm a two-issue voter, thank you very much.
Give me the two.
Authoritarianism.
Got it. So, and they're both equally ranked in your head.
Authoritarianism is probably slightly worse.
Okay. But let's just focus on the debt side. So if Trump is doing a terrible job on that side, and he's even siding with people like, let's just get rid of the whole debt limit and everything like that. What is kind of holding you to potentially the view that, I guess, the Republicans, or are you actually, maybe you see it as...
I want you to finish
I was going to
fucking bad. Let's go, David. What do you think?
How do you, let's just get your feelings on that.
On what? You didn't finish the sentence. How do I, see it, justify it? You were going somewhere.
Yeah, basically.
How do I defend my team, the Republicans?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not on a fucking team, David.
All right.
So this is asinine.
Okay.
Fucking cranking the dial to 11 on the debt is fucking stupid. I do not have a red jersey in my mind. I do not think of myself as a Republican. That is exactly how you get yourself in a fucking trap where you feel like you have to defend yourself. There is one place in my life I am fucking irrational, and that is my wife. If my wife ever comes across like a lunatic, I'm gonna be like, this chick's dope, man. Whatever the fuck she said. Now, I might take her privately and be like, bitch, what are you doing? But that is my wife. I'm going to back her 10 toes down. It is what it is. I would literally lay my life down for my wife.
Okay.
Now, outside of that, I'm not on a fucking team. So I get it. This is not how most people live their lives. So they just cannot imagine somebody who I don't get anything out of being on a team. In fact, can I walk you through something very fast? And as the person in that chair, if it goes on too long, you can slap me around.
Sounds good.
The reason that David is here is because I am so bad at building and being on teams that when my wife was like, don't you have somebody famous you can bring on? I'm like, I don't stay in touch with people like that. That's just not how my brain works. There are goals that I have and I'm just trying to cause and effect get to those. So I've long looked at people that are on teams and just thought, what are they doing? And then and this is the worst possible example, but it's true, so I'm gonna use it. I got invited to Mar-a-Lago, and I went, and I was like, all right, let's see what this is all about. And I was like, oh, this is why people go on teams. Because there was like a bunch of influencers there, and they were all like talking to each other, and like they'd go on each other's shows all the time. And there I am, like the lonely guy that is, I got my own show, yay! But like, I'm not the guy that's in rotation on anybody else's show. Because I just don't build alliances like that, which is fucking dumb, by the way. For achieving my goals, I wish I had that in my personality. It's so effective. And when I was in the room, I was like, I get why people like, they compromise a little. I don't really believe this, but it's like my team, like that's what they're here for. And so I'm gonna say that thing. And I was like, oh shit, I get it. I can feel the pull. And I can feel how if I was just like, you know what? I am on this team. That all of a sudden, boom, I'd be on podcasts all the time, which would bring a lot of awareness to my show, which would generate a lot more money. I was like, oh, I get it. I get it. I'm now, for the first time in my life, I can feel it viscerally. I can see how I could now easily play this game.
Okay.
Can you help people separate what it means that you voted for Trump, but at the same time you're not on his team? Because people keep coming back to that. It's just like, you voted for him.
Okay, let me ask them a question instead of answering it, if I may, for just one quick second. Do they think it would be better to not vote?
Like a protest vote or a...
So if it's like, well, Tom, you just shouldn't have voted to prove you're not on the team. I can track the logic. It doesn't make sense to me because I'm looking at it and I'm like, one of those two is going to be president. And I think one of them is more likely to lead me and the country to a better place. Now, neither of them is going to do a great job because they both have such grotesque deficits that, but okay. And to really bother people, if he had been on every ballot, I would have voted for RFK. And I don't know if people hate that more or less. I have no idea. But that was a person I would have voted for if he was on all 50 states. He wasn't, so I knew that that was nothing more than a protest vote. So if people were like, you just shouldn't have voted, okay. But if that's secretly them saying you should have voted for Kamala, but then I'd have the same fucking problem there. And they'd be like, well, explain to me why you voted for Kamala, but you're not on Team Kamala. It's like, okay. Now for real, right now I feel adversarially towards the chat for asking. Now I would like to be on your team for a second. I really, really believe the following statement. In fact, I will credit much of my worldly success and my emotional relationship success to the following belief. We live in a deterministic universe that acts on a set of rules. And that is true of humans. And that's true of like big macro systems. And therefore, if you can understand the rules, you can predict the outcome of your behaviors. To some degree, it's a very complex system. You're never going to see it super clearly, but like, whew, you can get really directional. Once I realized that, I started going, oh, okay, cool. Then it's a statement that I repeat in my head all the time. Skills have utility. What do I mean by that? I mean that you can get so good at something that you can then do a thing that aligns with the rules of how the world really works, and you can get an outcome that you want. So by getting good at something, and actually understanding the rules of how the world works, you can get to a desired end state. Okay, so then I became obsessed with that. And this is the reason why I say I want my tombstone to say you're having a biological experience. That to me is like the foundational, this is how the world works thing. From that springs all my comments about man is political animal. This is just the mind works in a knowable way. And there's a lot of difference in all that, of course, but the mind works in a predictable way, a knowable way. And so once I understood that my wife's brain, the female brain, works different than the male brain, I was able to have a smoother relationship because I no longer interpreted her behaviors what they would mean if I did them. I was like, oh, this is what she intends by that. And then it was like, okay, I get now where you're coming from and we can navigate things better. Same in business. Oh, business has physics. If I can figure out what those physics are, then you can basically turn your business into a computer. Inputs in, outputs out. It doesn't guarantee your business is going to work because it's very complex, but it's like you build a lot more stability. And so I've launched and built 3 companies. I mean, quite honestly, if you consider that we have different divisions at Impact Theory, built more than 3 companies, but let's just call it 3. I've generated more than $1 billion in lifetime revenue across all my companies. So it's like, it works, it's repeatable. And once something is repeatable, I'm just like, yo, this is really useful. Being on a team has low predictive validity. Being on a team means I have to say things that aren't accurate in order to stay in good graces. Now, that's an acknowledgement of physics unto itself, that there are physics to human relationships where it's like, well, Tom, the reality is I lie and like do the team thing because it keeps me in good standing with the team, and the team is very advantageous. You were just telling a story about how advantageous it would be, so you're the fool by not being on a team. That has internal logic. I get that. You collide with, I may just be hardwired to over-index on internal values. Like my North Star is I want to respect myself. And so I have a set of values. Whenever I step outside of those values, I lose respect for myself and I don't feel good when I'm alone. And I fucking hate that feeling. So my whole life is optimized around when I'm alone, I'm like, yeah, word. I haven't accomplished the things that I want to accomplish. I've never once been as good at anything as I wish I were. But I'm proud. I play to win. I play within my own ethical boundaries. I'm trying to pursue honorable goals, meaning they uplift me and other people. On and on. And people, no one will agree with everything, but like I have a value system. I live by that value system. Anyway, so mapping cause and effect, that's my whole shtick. So I admit that being on a team would certainly be better for business, but that's not my highest value. Earning my respect is. So anyway, you can map me with that. I will not.
And I know we got a super
tracking.
chat, so
Yes, but
Let's
before
go.
we get to the super chat,
Okay.
give us a speed
super
run
chat.
on why Trump is less authoritarian in your eyes than Kamala. There's several people asking that question.
Yeah, it's a great question. So first of all, remember that I have imperfect information. So it's possible that by the end of this term, we may realize that, oh, that was a fundamental flaw and Trump is a psychopathic authoritarian. He says things that really concern me. Like when he talks about running for a 3rd term, that is like having bamboo shoots shoved under my fingernails. I don't think people understand how, it's actually going to say triggering. I try never to be triggered, but that one comes close because that to me is somebody who is just revealing, no, I really do have authoritarian tendencies. So that one will play out in the fullness of time. And if it was like, oh, I mismapped that, and this guy really was a psychopathic dictator type, then I will just have been wrong. But at the time, you had her talking about top-down controls. She did not go through a primary process. She's part of a blob that hid the president for years. And I was just like, they're not a democratic institution. They want censorship. They're trying to control AI. Like they were doing so many things. And then you've got Trump, very sort of wild guy, but seemed to be pathologically incapable of not just saying what was on his mind. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. Didn't want the censorship, had not started talking about running for 3rd term, all that stuff. Didn't want wars, was saying, I just want to see the killing end. Like there was a lot of sounds that he was making that I was like, okay, like that seems less authoritarian. And honestly, I still think he is less authoritarian, but I don't want to pretend I can't see the crazy shit that he says. And it scares me is the wrong word because I don't live like that, but they worry me. And they really could spiral. And that really could be a disaster. And it's really possible that he ends up being more authoritarian than the Democratic Party. It's possible. I don't think so. The Democratic Party, I think right now, is in a full-blown leftist, America is evil, its core values are broken place. And I could not disagree with that mentality more violently if I tried. But again, I'm trying to be very clear-eyed about Trump as a matter of mapping what is true.
All right. Shout out to JDO. We have a second super chat from him for
Let's go.
$2.
Super chat.
Imagine if AI false news hits the right audiences today and the next few weeks to whip people up on this or that direction.
Yeah.
Also, when might we get a browser plugin to give us a probability of AI news on the screen?
Yeah, man. The fact that we don't have that already is offensive in the extreme. Every platform that plays should have some kind of plugin. Maybe doing it at the browser level is even better. But yeah, everything that gets published should have a blockchain signature on it so that people can earn their reputation over time. And you know, oh, this is Tom and it came from Tom. Cool. Then I know I can trust it. I may hate every word out of his mouth, but I know that it's real. That's doable right now today, and we're not doing it. And so that one is weird. I don't know why. I don't have a good answer. Somebody hasn't made the solution simple enough. Nobody sees a way to make money off of it. It's going to be something like that. But that's a must, man. And I cannot believe that we haven't done that. Like, it's already so real that there are plenty of things that I've watched and on the first viewing not realized that it was AI. So that's happening now. It's only going to get worse. So there you have that.
I think another hard part about this time especially is the fact that it looks like we're looking at a situation, but everyone's coming away with the different facts. And so we don't even need AI to even cause that disruption.
Yeah.
It seems like even the core truths of like, can we trust our courts? Can we trust this person? Oh, he just did. I'm seeing the chat saying, wait, didn't he already do all these authoritarian things? Don't you see that the courts are, like trying to take him down for that? I think recently,
Yes.
I think we heard,
Yes.
oh, he National Guard and that was actually back. And so the courts had to like push back on him. But then other people on the other side are saying, oh, but even the courts are corrupt. Right?
Also true.
So it's just like,
look, this
how
will all
layers
play
deep-
out at the level of the voter. Voters are going to have to decide, do you want activist judges? Voters are going to have to decide how much authority should a president have. But if people want to know, do I think him being like, I don't give a fuck what they say, I'm sending in the National Guard, is like that strong man authoritarian vibe? Yes. And if he keeps like going, like if that's a spiral and he ratchets up, then I'm like, oh, Jesus. If, on the other hand, he shows like he has what I'll call fire breaks. He does not seem to just ratchet up, right? Like if he were now targeting Elon and going after Elon and fucking like this kid's gonna bow before me, then I'd be like, uh-oh. But Elon said unhinged shit. Like what the fuck are you doing? Look, it was maximum popcorn munching.
Yep.
I'm not gonna lie. We were laughing here and we were like, yo, this is crazy. So I enjoyed the spectacle of it as much as anybody else. But at the same time, I was like, that is such a bad look for Elon. Like, bro, control your fucking emotions. This is crazy. And then Trump, I was like, oh man, he's going to be so fucking petty. I was like, wow, he's actually being presidential. So we'll see. I like to think of that as a fire break, but I am well aware that could be me projecting because the man is the fucking president. Right. And I want it to play out, not because I voted for him, because he's the president. And so if he derails, he's going to take us with him. So I want him to be a not lunatic. In fact, how about this? I make a pact. If he ends up being a good president upon final analysis, I'm not going to be like, see, I told you so. I'm never going to say that. I had incomplete information. I did the best with what I could. And if he ends up being a sociopath, I'll be right there with you. Like, fuck this guy. And if he's great, I'm not going to be like, yeah, y'all should listen to me. Nope, not how I will play that moment. So we do our best to map cause and effect, to think through what these things are. I have no idea what the final analysis on him is going to be. I have a feeling, like most people, he will get some things right and he will fucking crash other things on the rocks. So Time will tell.
Got it. And we got another super chat, Mason.
Yeah, we got 1999 super chat from Tim Riley. Being a painter taught me something wild. When you create just a few rules, you unlock total freedom. It's not about control. It's about creating your own system to think, act independently within any game, art, life, or business. I think there's some missing commas there. But basically, adding constraints increases creativity.
That is for sure. I don't know the context for that around Trump or Israel, but yes, in filmmaking, back in film school, we used to talk about that a lot. Like when a director has a limited budget, they almost always make a better movie than when they have all the money in the world, because your solution to every problem becomes throw more money at it. When you have to like, how the hell are we going to do this? Like Jaws is my favorite example of this. The shark kept breaking. So Spielberg was like, I'm going to have to shoot a movie about a shark where you don't get to see the shark. And that ended up being the most incredible thing ever. He found the music cue and it just built all this tension and your brain filled in the like horror of it all. I mean, just really brilliant. But look at the Star Wars, the second set of them was like, he could do any shot he wanted and all of a sudden it didn't feel intimate and cool. It just felt CGI and so big and over the top. I may have been too old to be the audience for that, but the original Star Wars trilogy, man, I loved it. So that's how it goes. Nerve, you are correct.
Cool. And I wanted to kind of touch back on, before we were reading the super chat, you were talking about how you have this principled view, these ethics that you keep yourself to. And again, all that matters is how you feel about yourself when you're by yourself. But at the same time, you understand that there are certain things about the human condition. And there is a thing that I've learned from you, which you said, you have to understand human nature. Don't try to change it. You must leverage it. And so if you're also trying to pragmatically move forward in this world, and you understand something about human nature, which is people love being in tribes, being in teams, but then you also have this ethic that says, I don't want to be in a team. How do you still pragmatically move forward? And
I don't know that I've ever said I don't want to be on a team.
Okay.
What I'm saying is I'm not good at being on a team. And so you combine not good at being on a team with you can also get yourself in trouble. I just don't know how long I'd be able to stay in a team because I'm inevitably going to say something that the team doesn't like. And my ultimate allegiance will be to my self-respect. So, but I mean, look, I have a very small number of very long friendships. So in that way, I do just fine. But yeah, I think the reality is we all have to deal with the way that the parts of us that are hardwired. And I've had 10 years to get so good at building relationships that I can have any guest on the show that I want. I've just never been able to do it. Because when I turn away from it and it is not the thing that I need to think about right in that second, I collapse inside of my own imagination. And so I just don't think to reach out to people. Anyway, it's not a virtue. It just is.
But I do admire the fact that, again, ideally we all live by certain values that keep moving us forward. And when I look at these political situations and all the chaos, even myself, I'm like, how much do I want to dive into this? Because I'm going back to some of these chats and these debates of like, he's already done authoritarian things. These are activist judges. Even saying the activist judge is actually a cover story by Trump to like stop you from all this type of stuff. When you're looking at that and you're trying to not take a team, how do you get to the source of the truth so that you can actually have a principled take?
Okay, so here's the shocking thing. The truth is ridiculously hard to assess, like ridiculously. Boys and girls, we see 0.0035% of the electromagnetic spectrum. We literally don't have the inputs to read the world as it actually is. That means you are living inside of a simulation. That simulation is created by your brain. Your brain is doing its best guess as to what's real. But once you know that when you're living inside of basically a bunch of shortcuts that your brain is doing, then you realize your brain is choosing to see some things and leave other things out. Now, what I would get people to look at is that it's not only your biology that does it, it's your beliefs and your values, which usually people do not choose. They are given to them when they grow up. They never step back and do like a meta-analysis of what should my beliefs be? What should my values be? They mistake their beliefs for objective truth. They mistake their values for just this is how things ought to be, like objectively. There's only one standard. And this is why it drives people crazy that Ray Dalio will say, China just does things differently. Once you realize that there is nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so. Then at least you can drill in and go, because I feel real strongly that some things are good and bad. But I accept it's just my thinking that makes it seem that way because I eat a lot of chicken and cows. So I'm clearly down to kill things if I am the one that survives. But like I would sooner die than eat Lisa, let's say, right? So if I'm starving to death and I'm like, man, I could choke her out and just eat her right now, I would quite literally rather die. And so, but I get that that isn't universally true. So it's, you're having a biological experience. You live in a deterministic universe. You have no free will, but you should act as if you do. I mean, that's sort of the punchline that I come down to. But when it comes to truth, you can have a very hard time identifying what it is. You're going to be blinded by your own values, your own belief system. Take control of it when and where you can. The vast majority of people will not. And that's just the world that we're living in. So if you want to push on that, like what outcome, like do you want to know how I leverage that to decision make, or what is the
ultimately
the
I'm
goal
trying
of
to
that?
figure out, you know, we're all individuals. We're trying to make sense of this world. And I'm pulling to these things of, I have my own personal interests, but then there are things that start to affect me. And I want to know what is the best path on like getting to the truth. And if
You have to triangulate. So speaking of triangulating, meaning you check in a bunch of different sources. Chat, I asked in text, but I haven't seen the answer. Do we have any new updates on Israel, Iran? What has happened? If you guys have seen,
okay, so
David, I don't know if you've seen anything.
Yeah, just in, Pentagon orders destroyers, including the USS Thomas Hudner, towards the Eastern Mediterranean, Politico. So
we sent?
Yeah, Pentagon is ordering destroyers to go into the Eastern Mediterranean.
Yo.
I don't know if that's just from a defensive play.
Like a peacekeeping if they start shooting at Israel?
I think it's actually going back to what Trump was saying of like, you better start making this deal. And supposedly, again, he supported Israel actually, you know, doing these strikes because he's like, hey, you're still not doing the deal. Is this his strongman way of showing, again, force to be like, again, let's make the deal, but I'm going to force you to ultimately make this deal. And again, is that his way
That's
of like,
a very plausible read. I don't know. I want to hear Trump talk. I'm surprised that he hasn't said anything else. So I'm very much waiting on you guys, chat. If he goes live, let us know immediately. But yeah, I will be very eager to hear what he says. I'll be very eager to hear what Rubio says. The fact that they're scrambling carriers to the region says that we are going to help defend Israel. So that is certainly a very clear signal. I don't know if they're getting any new intel out of Iran or if they've got direct communications. That will be very interesting and very important to figure out here in the coming hours and days. But this is going to play out. All right, if there's no new info right now on that, I want to talk about what's the riots. So I saw a message this morning. I don't know how much to believe this. I don't know if any of this is real, so would love to know what you know and chat what you guys are hearing. But people are talking about, it's interesting, somebody said defend in all caps. Yes, defend. Whether you think they should be defended or not, that is definitely what they're talking about. So here we go. This is a great place to start, David. Why did you pull this tweet up?
So ultimately, as you're mentioning the riots, there's potentially breaking news on this massive FBI investigation into the LA riots and potential CCP connections being exposed. And so ultimately, they find that there's this guy named Roy Singman, and he's funding two major communist organizations behind the riots. And they give more details on the fact that there's more propaganda being spread in these riots and being organized in these riots. And ultimately, more connections on these pro-China sources. The cartel payroll, is that why they went after like the cartel money laundering and all that? Is George Soros also involved? Lots of leftists there. So there's some loose connections, but then potentially enough, you know, smoke where we're going to have the FBI look into the fire potentially. And so, yeah, we wanted to bring that in and see. I'm sure all these nation states are trying to foment this disruption in the U.S. How do you collapse the society?
What have you heard about this weekend? Because people are talking about, hey, you should stay inside this weekend, stay home. Like there's going to be a lot of some will say protests, some will say riots going on around the country. Have you heard anything about what this is?
Something about like on the 14th, there's like a certain special day. I don't know if it's like, I'm trying to get the information of if it's Trump's like special day on like his like something is happening on that day that is specifically called for people to go out and protest. Again, I don't know if it's directly just tied to the immigration things. So if chat has any other information on that, but for me, what's interesting is if all of this, like how much of this is authentic, right? I mean, we know that the U.S. cares a lot about its people, and some people truly believe we're just a whole nation of immigrants.
I think the right way to ask the question is, if you have paid agitators, what does that represent? Because I think that there really is some percentage, what percentage I have no idea, but there's some percentage of people that really do want to see the American system as it is fall, to be replaced with communism. They'll say socialism, but it's basically just communism light. So how big of a movement that is, I'm not entirely sure, especially given the last election, but it does seem to be a movement. When you look at AOC being the front runner, when you look at Bernie Sanders was the left's version of a populist leader, you start to go, huh, like there's a real current of that going on. And so that part I think is real. Whether or not bricks are being dropped off, whether or not people are being paid to protest, that doesn't matter to me as much as there's a big amount of cultural energy pushing into the system, getting people on board with that. It's very easy. I mean, we'll see it in our own chat. People calling like, oh, you got to tax the rich more, right? Again, obviously my take I've made very clear, but there is a high degree of predictability in moments like this where people are in economically bad situations where they immediately blame the people that are winning inside of the system. And I understand the impulse from an emotional standpoint. It's just not connected to cause and effect. So in these moments, it becomes very easy to get people on that emotional train. And if AI researchers are correct and humans don't think logically, they think emotionally, then it's like if you actually want to sway people, I mean, one of the first things they tell you as a speaker is don't appeal to people's logic, appeal to their emotions, because that's how you get the crowd amped up. And so that feels like there's really something brewing from that perspective of there is emotional frustration that is growing by the day that people are taking advantage of, to be sure, but I don't think they're creating it. That's the part that worries me. And so if it's being amplified but not manufactured, now you've got two different problems. And if you only focus on the fact that this is being amplified and you put all of your time and energy into like, it's the CCP that's behind this. It's like, well, the CCP is fanning a flame that already exists. And as somebody who lives in a sanctuary city, it just feels unhinged when watching LA burn. And I mean, that was crazy town. Watching homeless, I've been here now for over 30 years. Watching the homeless literally disappear and then skyrocket over that time has been insane. So that's where I would try to get people to focus their energy, is what's going on culturally that paid agitators are able to leverage. And I see the red light, Mason.
Yep.
Yes, we got another super chat. We actually have two.
Yeah.
First one is
Super chat.
$20 from Sequoia Hall. How do you find
Let's go,
outside
Sequoia.
info? Outside
How do I
of
find
your
what
favorite
info?
One more.
How do I find what info?
How do you find info outside of your favorite sources? So much to think about. How do you choose? It can be very gatekept if you only use the same sources. I'm here to hear your sources, which differ from mine.
Yeah, so I try to follow people on both sides. So my feed is full of people yelling for things on the left and full of people yelling for things on the right. When I engage with chat, I will say, okay, I'll develop a compelling argument for a thing, and then I will ask it. The credible voices that think that this is a terrible idea, what are their best arguments? And so that way I can start to look at it from both sides and try to figure out like, okay, is this something where we want dynamic tension? Are both sides lying? Is there a truth in the middle? Are one of them right? But like once you get a complete picture, you can really start to hone in on it. There's a quote, I'm not going to be able to say it precisely, but the rough paraphrase is that if you are trying to argue a position and you can't argue the other side's best position as well as you can argue yours, then you don't understand either position. And if you don't understand either position, the only reason you're going with yours is because it's yours. So my goal is to always be able to steel man the other side. Like I can give you Gary's economics argument for why we should be taxing billionaires. And I like to think that I could do it in a way where he would be like, yeah, you actually understand my position perfectly. And so if you can do that, then you can say, okay, then what I'm about to say, we can agree. I'm not saying because I'm confused. I'm saying because I disagree. Doesn't mean I'm right, but it means that I can see the internal logic that somebody is using to reach their conclusions. Or I've mapped the emotional logic if they're coming from an emotional place. Because everything rides in the back of base assumptions. And if you can tell somebody their base assumptions back to them, it's extremely disarming. Because one, you stop arguing at the level of the T and you say, well, the reason I've come to a different conclusion is because of this. And now let's argue this base assumption.
And to even just give potential names on both sides that you do, like, I know even recently you were listening to like Cenk or someone like that. Like, could you give a few sources that you should like, oh, you should check out these people on the left, you should check out these people on the right. They could be good sources.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't memorize their names. So let me just go to my Twitter feed here.
Got it. So what's even good is potentially they just see who you're following on Twitter and they could kind of...
When I see an argument that's like really different than mine, I'll often follow the person.
Got you.
Because I'm like, oh, well, they come at the world from a totally different angle. So Kyle Kalinske, Laura Loomer, Konstantin Kisin, American Patriot, Gavin Newsom, Chamath Palihapitiya, Mac Jack, whoever that is. I have no idea if I followed them or if they're just my For You page.
So very helpful.
Dave Smith, Michael Schellenberger. So oftentimes it'll be, if I see two people arguing a point and they're both doing it intelligently, I'll just follow them both. So I'm like, perfect. I get both sides of the issue. And then if I feel like for whatever reason, I'm getting only one side of the argument, then I'll go into the comments and see if there's somebody credible that's debating them. Destiny is another person that I follow who routinely thinks I'm moronic. But being able to understand their argument helps me because, one, again, because people will often say, Tom, you should debate so-and-so. And I'm like, I'm not a good debater, so it would just not, like if you're hoping I'm the invincible winner that's going to go in and thrash this guy that you don't like because you agree with me and not with them, I will let you down 100 out of 100 times. And then two, part of what makes me a terrible debater is if I think that they have a better argument on a piece of mine, I'm like, ooh, that's dope. So now, and then I'm like in real time trying to be like, okay, but if that's more true than what I believe, what does that mean? How does that like change because I'm trying to follow the full sequence of connective tissue. So anyway, it makes for a terrible debate. And while I like to flatter myself and say I'm a deep thinker, I'm not a fast thinker.
Gotcha.
So I would be truly
on that
terrible
line with
at debate.
Destiny. I know we got a second super chat that mentions.
Second super chat, 1999 from Esoteric Dichotomy. See them in the chat all the time. Hey Tom, what are your red lines for Trump? Destiny says that people need clear, measurable lines for Trump, or we risk a shifting goalpost and acclimate to his actions over time, despite the increasing extremism.
Yeah, that's fair. I would need to know what he means, though, where I would ask for impeachment,
multiple people have asked,
25th
like,
Amendment or something?
You keep saying, in the final analysis, is it going to come out that Trump actually is more authoritarian or whatever? But then people are saying, how are you not there already? And why not make that judgment right now in the middle of it?
There is a invisible implied thing. So every time he does something that's inappropriately authoritarian, I say that's inappropriately authoritarian. So what do they want? Me to permanently categorize him? That's where I'm like, I'm not sure what they're looking for. So if they're looking for me to move him over into a box, to yell and scream every time he makes noise, that I don't deal with the world in that way. That's nonsensical to me. That's just team ball. That's saying I'm trying to put him on a team and say I'm against that team. I want to look at the policies that he puts in place and say either that makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So take Bernie Sanders. I could not disagree with Bernie Sanders more violently. I think Bernie Sanders is dangerous to the well-being of American citizens. Okay, I think he's dangerous to poor people. So now Do I go, if he makes sounds, I'm going to yell and scream about him? No. It's like, first of all, I want to understand people really resonate with his message. So let's be way careful about over-indexing on my rightness about him. Let's see what he's saying. Why is it that people are about that? Does he have something that he's right about? Like, how should we be handling Medicare and Medicaid? Sure, it's all good and just to scream about money printing and we can't deficit spend and all of that. But like, also, do I want to live in a world where people don't have a safety net? And so how do you do, right? Like, that's how I want to think. So if what people are saying is like cram people into boxes and yell and scream when they talk, like that, and that feels like what they're asking. So anyway, back to Destiny. If Destiny is saying, hey, people, you need to have a red line around Trump. I don't know what he means by that, but I will say in terms of a thing that I would become vociferously opposed to publicly if he tries to run for a third term, I will have a real fucking problem. There are things that I haven't thought through, so I wouldn't be able to give you specifics, but there are ways that he could be moving with the National Guard for the protest that I would have a real fucking problem with. If he wasn't letting people peacefully protest, I would have a real fucking problem with that. There was one thing that I saw, it's not him, but like this was grotesque in my opinion. You had, I think they were in the National Guard, forgive me if they were a cop, but they shot a reporter with a rubber bullet. Like he turned and shot, it was an Australian reporter, literally goes, bam. And I was like, what the fuck? So that guy better be investigated. So beyond those things of like, this happened, this is horrific, this is authoritarian, this is whatever, whatever, whatever. I'm not sure, like, what's that final thing that they're worried about? So there are a whole host of things. So for instance, I think that I need to go back and look at it because I think that there were more rulings on it. But the Trump at one point, this was like a month ago or something, Trump was claiming that, hey, the Supreme Court ruled in our favor. And I'm like, did they? Because a lot of people are saying they didn't. So I went and read what the Supreme Court said. And I was like, he is fucking lying. They did not rule in his favor. I would say the exact opposite. Now they told the district court judge, like, depending on how this word is defined, you probably don't have the right to do this. And that was the thing that they were claiming. But it's like, they've been very clear about what the process is. This needs to go back down to the district court. They need to clarify their ruling, and then we can kick it back up here and we can actually make a decision whether they made the right call or not. And so things like that, it's so easy to say, like, that's so disingenuous. That is full of shit. And if he were talking about abolishing the Supreme Court or stacking it or whatever the other fucking dictatorial words we hear people say about that, then fuck him, fuck that. Like, no. So this is one where I would love it if somebody would say, hey, he did this thing. What do you think about it? I'll look at it and say either, yeah, this is fucking terrible, but I have a feeling people want like a second thing where it's like, now I'm going to storm the Capitol or something. I'm not sure like where they want to go with it. No matter who you put in that position, they're going to do things that I like and they're going to do things that I hate. And I have no doubt that if I had been politically engaged during the Biden administration, I would have been like, oh, I like this and I fucking hate that. As I would expect, if Kamala Harris got into office, I'd be like, I like this, I don't like that. And by the way, once they get elected, I want them to win. I want them to win. Because if they don't, it's the American people that get fucked. So let's say that Kamala Harris had won and I had lost. You would not see me throw a tizzy fit. I'd be like, okay, cool. Now let's speak up against the things. Like, I do not want to see her trying to do top-down controls on groceries and shit like that. But let's try to nudge it in the right direction. But I'm on Team America. I want America to win. So whoever is the president, yay, let's go. Let's help them do rad shit.
I think that answers their question. They even said lines like that. Like, that's helpful to know. All right, so we're going to move on to finding out this whole...
Tax them or eat them, says Reptoid. Tax them or eat them. We need a t-shirt with that, Reptoid.
So there's also the controversy that just happened also yesterday with a Democratic senator.
Oh, Padilla?
Yes. So Alex Padilla being thrown out handcuffed.
You got to play this clip.
So I will show.
Can we get some sound on this?
Yeah.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have
Go back, start at the beginning. So if you're not watching, pause it for a second. He rushes into a hearing of Kristi Noem, if I'm not mistaken. And I don't know if it's intentional, but he's not wearing his Senate pin.
Yeah, his security pin.
And they said he didn't identify himself, but you can hear him right in the clip saying it. So that's some bullshit. But anyway, this is there a clip where we can see more? And look, it's possible people didn't start filming until he was acting crazy, but it's like, this is the kind of selective editing that drives me crazy. Like, was he calm and rational in the beginning? And like, they just don't like the question he's asking, and so they start manhandling him? Or did he come in hot like that? Because seeing just that clip, he is trying to push past them. So yes, they're going to manhandle you and put you down.
I mean, talking about selective editing, and this kind of ties into the first thing. This was posted before by Gavin Newsom, and his statement is, if they can handcuff a U.S. senator for asking a question, imagine what they will do to you. And then I think the video came out later, which is why they're saying, wait, they haven't shown you this video, which we'll play from the start again.
Hands up, hands up. I'm Senator Alex Padilla. I have questions for the secretary. Because the fact of the matter is, a half a dozen violent criminals that you're rotating on your head.
I almost want to hear the question.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, okay, we don't see the beginning of this clip. If at the beginning of the clip, he's just like, hey, I have some questions, and they're like, we don't like this fucking question, get this guy out of here, then that's dictatorial, psychopathic, what the fuck is happening to our government behavior. If, on the other hand, he makes the first move and tries to, like, comes in, fucking bold charging the thing, and people are like, what the fuck are you doing? And then he keeps trying to push forward. So it's like, because you don't see the beginning of this clip, it's tough to know, like, whether this was justified or not. So to be honest, I don't have enough information. If that were, like, if what triggered it was him trying to push past with that kind of aggression, then yeah, you got to put him down.
And I think, like you were just saying, each of them feel selective, right? We saw Gavin Newsom's take, which is just showing the photo where he's on the ground, and like all he was trying to do was ask a question.
Yeah.
Obviously, with more information. But when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's fucked. Like, how could that be? And then we see the video. But even like you said, even that is potentially selectively edited. At this point, what can, again, I'm back into the how much deeper do I have to dig to see which side I have to take?
Yeah.
So, I mean, ultimately,
I think getting into all of these things and trying to figure out all of the specifics of it, probably not the play. Backing up, asking these questions from a philosophical standpoint, like, okay, if he was calm and they didn't like his question and they start pushing him back, that's bad on them. If he comes in hot like that and they grab him, yeah, obviously that was fucking stupid on his part. So now it's like, over time, presumably, the truth is going to come out. Someone's going to have footage we're going to see. That's easy enough. But the bigger question for me, there's a couple here, is we're racing away from each other politically. And I don't think people are taking that seriously enough. That is dangerous. That's not just bad, that's dangerous. And so we have to find a way back to the middle, culturally, somehow, some way. As always, it's always the kids, the next generation have to clean up the cultural mess. But man, if we don't find a way to come back together somehow, some way, someone with a great fucking message who's really a uniter, that is not Trump, somebody that can really make all Americans feel seen and understood, God, that would be transformative. I'm definitely a big believer in the great man theory of history. So I do believe that there is a person somewhere that could pull that off. I certainly haven't seen them, but I want to believe that they exist. That would be amazing. That's number one. And then the other thing, I could make something up, but I don't remember what the other.
We also have a super chat kind of tied to that, I believe.
All right, let's go.
Mason.
We got a $20 super chat from Sequoia Hall.
Go Sequoia, coming in hot today.
I don't know this name, but Neom, N-E-O-M.
Oh, Neom City?
Perhaps.
There is a Neom City.
Said that after he did not ID himself, which is a lie, she needs to be called out.
Let me check.
So I don't know who Neom is.
Maybe someone in chat. And so said that
That's a
after
typo.
he did not ID himself.
Her name's Christy Nome. It's
Yeah.
spelled Neome like that?
Was trying to ask the Homeland
Oh, that's
Security
interesting.
Secretary Christy Nome a question. Oh, got it. So ultimately, this is about Christy Nome, and who was the person he was trying to ask a question to.
Nome said.
Yeah, so this is the fact that he did identify himself. He was saying, so basically they're taking the side of like, he already identified himself, you should have let him ask his question. The person who was trying to avoid his question was the one that said he didn't even identify himself, which is why we pushed him out. So he's saying that person should get called out.
Yeah, how is it possible? This is a taped briefing, right? I assume?
We're actually gonna go to the next one, which is kind of tied to that.
All right, does this show it? Wait, the question? Or?
Yeah, another super chat that ties to this question. So we're gonna just wrap it all in.
But yes, you can hear him in the video identifying himself. So clearly, if she's saying that he never identified himself, that is a lie. Just as blatant as the day is long.
So just for the super chat, if
Next one, $20 from Brutus Lugo, who's always in the chat. Tom, if Padilla came in hot and that was the reason he was knocked out, then why did
kicked out
lie and say it was a cause? It was because he didn't ID himself.
Because she's a liar, and it's politically expedient to say that. People spin. It's what they fucking do. Every word out of their mouth. If a politician is making sound, they are spinning. I'm telling you right now. Listen, I'm not a politician, and I'm choosing words. The second I choose words, emphasis, it's all spin. It's all context that you're trying to create. It's a frame of reference you're trying to wrap people inside of. I'm not doing it with malicious intent, but I'm trying to wrap you all inside of my frame of reference. It's what communication is. But then politicians are that in a deranged fucking fashion. And if people do not understand, this is what they do. It is their nature. You will forever be confused. They will all lie. They will all spin. And I don't know a way around it. Read the book Machiavellians, The Defenders of Freedom. It makes the most black-pilled case for, sorry guys, it's just going to be this way. It's been this way all throughout human history. This is architecture of the human mind. There's no way around it. You will always have a group of elites, and they will always lie, and they will always spin, because guess why, David? Do you know why people try to spin you?
Because it works.
Because it works. You're fucking spinnable. So we're all a bunch of gullible, hairless monkeys. And given that, people will just drape us in their frame of reference. And it's so funny how often it's inescapable. I shudder to think what percentage of anyone's, myself included, what percentage of our worldview is propaganda? David, it's got to be high. Can I break your heart?
Let's do it.
You may already know, and some people in chat will already know. This one hurt. Okay. In my mind, there's a few people that I can really look up to and be like, yo, these people. Lincoln being one of them. Did you know that he said the following words? If I could keep the Union together without freeing a single slave, I would do it.
I say that's false. I didn't see it. You're just propagandizing.
Yo.
He's my man. I believe him.
Yo. That's so crazy. The proclamation, how am I blanking on this? The Emancipation Proclamation ended up being the same. He saw that Europeans were going to try to split the country into a bunch of sub-countries. And so they were funding the Confederates. And that was when Lincoln was like, oh, wait a second. If I can make this about slavery, Europeans have already abolished it. So they will find it abhorrent to back the side of slaves if that's what this war is about. And that's when he did the Emancipation Proclamation. And so it's just like, oh God, like this, yeah, politics is a game of getting what you want. Maybe not even almost, by any means necessary.
Let me actually push on. I know one of your also
Please.
highest values is freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And so when I start to see even news like this and how much conflict's just even happening in our small little chat of people disagreeing of who said what when, and by this clip I can show you that. This all leads to me being, okay, the human animal can be spun, as you were saying. We also have confirmation bias. So at a certain point, we're going to see things like the Gavin Newsom. If I'm on his side, I believe that as the truth. If I start to see the extended clip, I don't even know if I'll start seeking that out because I'm just like, this is the truth right here.
Yeah, my boy told me.
Yep. And so I'm going to push you on the freedom of speech. Even I don't even know where I'm going to
push away.
I like this. But
let's go.
At a certain point, if we know this ultimately leads to more chaos, more conflict, and we get further from the truth, why can't I be like, there should be a punishment to specifically clipping out something to be deceiving, and just say, no, there should be, I don't know if it's a law or something, a fine, and just say, you understood the full context, and you clipped it out to create more foment chaos.
Very simple. There will be no bright line that you will be able to draw that does not require subjective interpretation, and now you've just given power to crazy people. No, we do not want Trump or anyone in his cabinet to decide what's true and not true. No fucking way. We don't want anybody in any cabinet. But I mean, I don't think you have to go far to ask the world to say, hey, would you like Trump to be able to decide what's true? You will get some people that are diehard to be like, yeah. But dude, go ahead, push. Give me your best argument.
Yeah. Because I was going to even say, we believe like freedom of speech, but then there's also incitement of violence. There is a bright line there.
Yes.
Is that actually a bright line? Because what if...
No. It's as bright as you're going to get. And it's the most brilliant thing about English common law, which is basically all the high-functioning societies use English common law. Common law means this thing has been on the books for a very long time. Therefore, it probably isn't too destructive. So we've had that on the books for decades for sure. I don't know when it was first added, but so at this point you can say, oh, if this is what I get when we do our best to draw a line around incitement of violence, then cool. Yep, I'm good with it. I certainly don't want to remove it because I don't want people running around inciting violence.
But even that seems flexible because again, there were controversies of, let's say, Hassan using the picture of the gun that killed Shinzo Abe and then putting that, quote tweeting a senator or whatever. Yeah. Like, is that incitement of violence? Same with that saying, if you go to this protest, it's fine if you get killed. Is that incitement of violence? But you're saying, like, what would be an example of incitement of violence, super bright line? You'd be like, yeah, we're cutting that off.
Go kill them.
But if I do a picture, it's not that.
Are you doing like a rebus where it's like,
say I draw a person with a gun
plus this person equals
at what point can
like
I just start abstracting
hearts? Yeah, I mean, listen, so this goes back to the Kristi Noem thing. For me, you want to have shock absorbers where people can act a little bit of a fool within a political, this is why I think spitting on troops, and then the reason is life has taught me one immutable truth. If you draw a hard and fast line, like you won't tolerate any disrespect, and somebody gives you even a funny sideways glance, or they say something in front of like, say something about me in front of an employer or whatever. People were joking in the chat earlier that they thought they got Drew fired. Drew will be back, everybody. We love Drew to death. He is off doing something fun and wonderful. So you want these shock absorbers. You want them in your marriage. You want them in your friendships. You want them in your work relationships. You definitely want them in politics because you do not want to be jailing politicians. That one freaks me out. I would have had so much respect for Trump if he was like, I'm just not going to go after these people. I don't think it's good for the country. But instead, what you get is like, no, nobody's above the law. Like, we got to go after these people. We can't have it weaponized. Dude, somebody be the fucking bigger man, please, Jesus. So life has taught me that that's insanely useful. As I always tell my wife, instead of knocking on my neighbor's door every time they're noisy at 2 a.m., I just take a little note. So when I'm noisy at 2 a.m., I can be, hey, motherfucker, there were 96 times I didn't say shit to you. Turn around, fuck right off. But I find that people don't do that. They want something emotionally satisfying right now. They never play the long game. So anyway, shock absorbers are necessary. Sometimes people are going to act a fool and be a little out of pocket. And if you're fucking hyper reactive, it's just dumb. It's going to spiral out of control.
So this is, I want to push a little bit further into this. I think I saw a comment even going into the sci-fi scenario. Let's say you could actually mind read Gavin Newsom when he was making that picture and sending that tweet to frame it a certain way.
Yes. The one of California?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can mind read him. This goes back to at what point should we put a limit to your freedom of speech if we know you're intentionally doing it in a way?
How badly do you want dystopia?
Let's go all the way.
Okay, well, if you want to be dystopic and you want to make people hate their lives, then the second they think it, clamp down on them. That is so fucking evil and stupid and will ruin your life, their life. It will only reward people who jerk off to being in control, and they will find a way to make themselves be above the law. Dude, humans do evil shit when they are put in a circumstance where that is the high incentive. And so it's just fucking dumb. Here, everything for me boils down to one simple fact. You think you're right, but how do you know you're right? I think I'm right a lot. I'll yell into this microphone that I think I'm right. Dude, I know I'm going to be wrong about a lot. This is why I don't want to debate. I don't want to put myself in a position where the goal is to prove I'm right. That doesn't make sense to me. I want to be in a position where I can battle test my ideas and see if there are better ideas. Because if there are better ideas, I will adopt them. Why? Because I'm constantly making contact with the real world. And if you can be right about something, you can get an outcome. You can get outcomes other people don't get. And I'm playing to win, man. There are things I'm trying to do in my life and I have to outperform people. That is the great fucking joy of seeing how good you can get at something that matters. But you have to be in the fucking real world. And so when I see people, the number one problem that we face as a society, David, is people are too convinced they're right. I'm not convinced I'm right. I will be very aggressive with an idea, but I run an algorithm in my mind all the time that says the more certain you are that you are right, you are at your most dangerous. You're at your most fragile. You need to be your most careful. When you run a business, I'm going to give you a secret to business that if people could really understand this, this is like one of the key unlocks as an entrepreneur. You must look at a set of patterns in the world and figure out what they mean and where they lead. But you don't know what's true. You don't know what's true. The world is too fucking complicated. And Trump could come in tomorrow and fuck up your whole shit with new tariffs. Okay? But because humans long for certainty and you have a business full of people, you've got to give them certainty. So what ends up happening is the mid-tier entrepreneurs, they create certainty in their own mind, either because they're just wired like that or they buy into their own bullshit, whatever. But they become convinced this is how we're going to win. They go and tell their team. Their team gets super hyphy and then they get caught up in it and they run the whole fucking company off a cliff. And what I try to teach people to do, hey, you have to come up with that map. You've got to figure out what we're going to do. You need to go intoxicate your team with certainty. But holy fuck, you've got to go into a private room by yourself or with a small group of highly trusted people. And you have to say the following like a mantra. I know I'm wrong about something. I just don't know what it is. And so I need you guys to tell me that I'm wrong. This is why one of the things I try to fucking cultivate, and there's a power imbalance between the owner and employees always that I've just never been able to eradicate. But I find people like you who are not afraid to tell me when you think I'm stupid. And when people are willing to be like, this doesn't make sense. Like yesterday, dude, I hope he can hear my voice. There is a young man just off camera who made me a tremendous amount of money yesterday. Fucking A. It was brilliant. And this kid had the fucking audacity to argue with me about a business principle and how to write. And I'm like, you're worse at writing than me. And compared to what I know about business, you know fuck all. And I was like, it's so dope that he's like, hey, like he just wasn't going to let it go. He's like, Tom, you're not right about this. This is what we should be doing. And I was like, this is so gangster. This is what you need. Even though I was like, he does not know what he's talking about. But if you can't create that environment, you'll be blind because A, he was right enough that I actually made changes and was like, okay, I see what he's fucking saying. And if you can foster an environment like that, the things that I really am blind to, somebody can come and make me not blind because they're not afraid they're going to get fired. But people are so convinced they're right, David. They're so convinced they're right. They'll riot. They'll fucking burn things down. Oh, I hate that.
Well, thinking about you want that diversity of thought, you want to hear perspectives from many different places. This actually came across my feed and I thought it was pretty relevant to this topic of there's new research coming out that there's more diversity of thought on the political right than on the political left.
Yeah,
I'd like to know.
Fascinating.
Because I'd like to see the left as it's all about diversity, inclusion, but how did they come to the point where they actually have less diversity of thought? And on the right, there's actually more infighting in some ways, but they're actually pulling in potentially more different directions, but they're getting more, again, new thoughts coming together in that circle. How did that happen? And does this actually show that potentially one strategy leads to more success for that party, or Is that going to actually cause more conflict?
Well, I'm going to be journaling out loud because I don't know the actual mechanisms that are happening. But people that are cognitively optimized for compassion are far more likely to steer by emotion. And when you have a more feminine temperament, you're focused on emotion in terms of how you navigate the world. You're relying far more on narrative than you're relying on scientific method. And when you're relying on emotion and narrative, now all of a sudden it's about, you end up in groupthink whether you intend to or not, because you're trying to get in sync. You're trying to connect. Now, to fail to understand what female, and I don't mean it strictly in the sense of women, but female pathology becomes reputational savaging. And so you see that, and I don't think anybody's surprised to see that on the left. But then what ends up happening, and this is, again, my gut instinct, I wouldn't be able to give you studies or anything, but you get everybody, they're trying to get in sync, and then they police that narrative. And they don't have the outside world to challenge it, to show how you're not making contact with reality. Because they're saying, no, 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 I do feel this way. That is real. And once they feel like, okay, I feel this way, that's valid, this is my lived experience, get everybody in sync with the narrative, police it because it's a feminine temperament that leads them to that, which means it's going to be a more feminine style of reputation savaging by way of policing, and you get what you see on the left. So it ends up being, groupthink makes it sound very derogatory. This mechanism has its place, but that's what you end up with. Now, when you are optimized biologically for personal responsibility, now all of a sudden you're saying, well, we're trying to get to the right answer. Now, what sounds right, what actually works. And there's a coldness to that people on the left do not like. Understandably, by the way, you want friction between the two. But when you get to that cold, just like scientific method, hard facts, it's going to splinter because the truth is hard to identify. It's a game of falsification. You were trying to run experiments and see what works. And it's inevitable that in the messiness of running those experiments, it's unclear what's entirely true. And so, one, they're far more likely to be willing to disagree and to tolerate that disagreement. They understand that you can battle out ideas. It's also a far more masculine frame. Men have a much easier time being in open conflict with each other, and they can mend that conflict pretty rapidly. Like, I mean, just watch cage fighters. They'll beat the fucking life out of each other. And then, not always, but they'll often be like, have earned each other's respect and they're fine. So again, I don't want to pass value judgments. I'm a firm believer you need the left and the right. They both, though, can become pathological, and we just happen to be in a moment right now where the left is really policing its own. And so it's narrative, emotional driven with hardcore police. And so you just end up with, at least from a stated perspective, groupthink.
So even though you see these tendency pulling one way of why that diversity thought might have been killed, you're saying it actually could flip over time.
Well, you're never going to get, you're almost certainly not going to ever be in a position where the left has a more diverse set of viewpoints, but you can be in a position where the left understands that it's a dance. So
compute for me, because isn't the left the ones who are more progressive, come up with the new ideas, push culture forward?
No.
And then the right
the left are progressive. So if you think of it as compassion and personal responsibility, you'll be less confused.
Gotcha.
So the left is, we've called it progressive because when they looked at societal structures that were oppressing people, that triggered every element of I want to help that person. When they see, what do you mean blacks and whites can't get married? That's ridiculous. So it's like you're moving society forward in that way for anybody and everybody that believes that that's a noble and worthy end, which you can firmly count me on that team. So that really does feel like progress. Like we're pulling ourselves out of the old and we're moving into a liberal world order where we're pursuing truth. Now, when the right goes pathological, think of it as cement. This is what we believe. You're aligned with this or you're not. And if you're not, you're dead. Like literally, we're going to kill you. And so that's what their pathology looks like. So you've got pathology on one side of, call it disorder through freeloading. And then over here, you have disorder through overregulation. Like those are the two things that compete for each other, compete with each other. So I think, though, the way that you naturally get the diversity of thought is that you are optimizing for, we have a known outcome that we're trying to get to.
Okay. I know we could probably go deeper, but we do have a super chat. So if Mason.
Let's go.
So going back to Tim Riley, he did another super chat for 1999. This is what he meant by the rules for painting to help him navigate a blank canvas. When in life, from dealing with your parents, teachers, friends, or bosses, are you not the one who has to navigate the world as if it unfolds in front of you?
All right, this was Tim.
Yes.
And then he continues saying, that's what I meant by the rules for painting to help me navigate the blank canvas. Life dealing with another one. So the restraints, controls, rules.
So I think he's talking about, you often talk about how does this come back to the individual? What can people do to really understand what they need to do for themselves right now, given the societal landscape?
But this super chat seems to be nested inside of something else. Did he ask another question somewhere?
So his previous question, or his previous super chat, was talking about
being a painter,
needing the constraints to be able to become.
Right, the creativity. Yep. Okay, and then but the part about like his family, I didn't understand that.
So he's connecting that, his earlier one about needing constraints to be a better painter, to in life you're dealing with your parents, teachers, friends to help you unfold or help you navigate the world as it unfolds.
I can see it
so
as
I think what he's saying is like you have free will and you can make your own decisions, but then the perspectives you get from other people are like the constraints on creativity that allow you to actually make up your own take. If I had to,
well, if he's saying you need a worldview and it's being given to you and that allows you to move through the world, that's correct. This is why we are the animal that learns through culture. That's why we have become the dominant species, because you can give somebody the culture that's relevant right now in this moment. And so much of the wisdom of the human animal is conveyed at the cultural layer. So yes, I agree. And yes, everyone is going to have a frame of reference. There is no way to escape it, for sure. It's necessary, it's useful, and inevitable.
And going back to our...
Itzy is giving you a shout out, Mr. Kim.
Well, thank you very much. Mason, if you want to read the next super chat for 20.
Oh yeah, we've got one from Brutus Lugo.
And Adam, yes, I do believe, Adam. We've been on a streak, but there's also a lot going on in the world. And so that doesn't hurt with them numbers. But let's take a minute, chat, to shout you guys out. We when we started, we were less than 1,000. We were struggling to hit that 1,000. Then we would peak like 1,100. Today, we were peaking at like 24, 25. So
I saw 2738.
Let's go.
Is that an all-time
chat? I don't want to call it till I see it, but we gotta be pretty close.
Anyway,
so
back to the
yes, chat. It feels like we're moving in the right direction.
For Brutus.
All right,
Thanks
Brutus
to you
Lugo.
guys.
The left has diversity of
Is
thought.
this in all caps?
It is
No,
not.
Wow, Brutus, look at that.
Restraint.
Brutus is showing restraint. Brutus normally, he said something earlier. I couldn't read it all, but it was in all caps. And so I
don't
felt
like
it
all
was
the
like
caps.
coming home.
Yes. The left has diversity of thought because they've already reached a consensus and have goals. It has nothing to do with feminine or masculine thinking.
The left has less
Less
diversity. I was like, wait a second, I'm confused.
Oh,
already
you're
The
right.
left has less
they're actually
diversity
all
of
on the
thought
same
because
team.
they've already reached a consensus. That makes sense. And have goals. Undoubtedly, everybody has goals. I'm with you so far. It has nothing to do with feminine or masculine thinking.
It's just acceptable
Okay,
thinking.
we disagree. So I think that the left is feminine leaning for sure. Like if you over-index on compassion, the odds of you being a woman skyrocket. That obviously does not mean that the left is women and the right
Seems like
are
more feminine
men.
versus masculine.
Yeah, like let me be very clear. I am a more feminine man than your average guy, for sure. The way that I am in touch with emotions, the way I care about emotions, how deeply I find myself interested in creativity, in love, being married, like all of that stuff. My journey's been learning to be tougher, to find aggression, all of that stuff. So I am certainly not trying to draw a line between this is women and men. I'm just saying masculine and feminine temperaments I believe are real. I'm totally open if you disagree. Taking that frame has certainly had high predictive validity in my life, but I get that not everybody is going to agree. And listen, I'm very open to being wrong, man. If you can show me something that has higher predictive validity, but I will just tell you at the beginning of my marriage, I thought that my wife was me with a vagina, and that had very low predictive validity. And then once I realized, oh, wait a second, you actually see the world through a fundamentally different lens. And if you want to understand my mental map very quickly, read the book, A Billion Wicked Thoughts. It chronicles the difference between male and female porn and what that reveals about the structures of our brain, what we're optimized for. It was super eye-opening, as was the book, The Female Brain. Those two have had a huge influence on the way that I see men and women. And again, we have more in common than we have different, but it's been extremely useful to understand them separately.
We'll go to the next super
Speaking of books, we've got one more super chat from Luxu.
Let's go,
Tom,
Luxu.
I don't know if you have already, but check out G. Edward Griffin's video. That was the author of the Jekyll Island.
Yes, it was.
Right?
Or is.
His video titled More Deadly Than War, Communist Revolution of America. It is one fascinating presentation that'll rock your top. Maybe a little deep dive.
Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. Can you Slack me that?
Yeah, let me.
That would be amazing. Luxu, thank you for contributing $20 to the cause here while making me smarter. I appreciate that. I really liked The Creature from Jekyll Island. So yeah, I'm game to give it a shot.
Cool.
Orange is the new blackface. Gary, I'm gonna need more context on that.
Cool. And then I think we want to touch back on
Fatty. Yeah, we probably haven't updated the headline and thumbnail. You have to forgive David. This is his first time in the seat. So we talked about it at the beginning. We probably spent about 90 minutes on Israel, Iran. But if there is any new information, we 1,000% will circle back to that. So let me know.
I guess the only new one I'm seeing on my feed is 30 minutes ago. It says Iran just called Trump. No details other than that.
Okay.
At least they're on the call. Maybe the destroyers actually sent a signal.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. Fingers crossed.
Yep.
It will be very interesting to hear Trump directly. I will eagerly anticipate that. Surely that's got to be today. All right, chat. I want to know, how many of you guys think something's going to pop off this weekend? Is it supposed to be on the 14th specifically?
Yeah, so I think
Sunday.
Yeah, people were saying it's...
No, wait. Today's the 13th. Friday the 13th, everybody. Happy Friday the 13th. Let's go. So tomorrow, who thinks something is going to pop off?
So
chat, let me know.
It's Trump's birthday tomorrow. It's also the 250th anniversary of the military.
That's right.
And they're doing a parade. And I think there's one more. I need to find it again. But like a lot of culmination of like, this is about Trump's America and all that type of stuff. So it's just signaling this might be the time for people to make their voices heard if they're on the opposite or on. Or, so this goes back to, you know, do we actually think something's going to happen, or...
Boy, do I hope not. Ricky, can we do polls? Can we do polls, Mason? Ricky is rightly asking for a poll. I think we can, right? Or was she always doing those on Twitch?
I don't know if YouTube does YouTube?
I cannot do it because I'm not logged in as you. I can try to log in as you.
All right, sorry guys, we're failing you right now. We're failing you. We got to get back to that. So if Mason's going to be a regular, which by the way he's gonna speak more, it will be lovely. If you can learn how to do that, that would be great. We can get back in the clips in the poll game. Do we actually have a super chat, or is that red light?
Nope, I didn't turn it off.
Red light is outdated. All right, it goes like it goes.
I mean, is the current LA riots? Are they still happening even now, or has that died down?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't expect it to be super. If they're really trying to make a statement on the 14th, if that's real, then I would expect them to be building up for it. But I hear something about it every morning. But to be honest, at this point, assume that I'm sort of being recycled old information.
Also, even discussions internally with the team of asking, do you think protests even work in this day and age? And I think we even talked about, I think you were saying, do they have a specific goal, a specific thing that they actually want from it? So if you were trying to help them in their protests, how do you think they should be organizing themselves?
Around specifically immigration?
To be honest, if what is happening on the 14th and that's what everyone's kind of worried about, maybe it will be something broader. But I think one of the things goes into does the left have too many goals? Are they trying to do too many things? It's about immigration, it's about Palestine, it's about this and that, and they're trying to force it all into one protest, and that's what's causing the chaos and not on the same like one message? And if so, what would that one message be if you were going to help them, you know, get their message right?
So yeah, the most important thing is you have to have a goal. So what is your goal? If the goal of the protesters against immigration is that we don't want any immigrant deported. So anybody that's here, because they obviously would never use the word illegal, we don't want anybody that's here to be deported, then you would have to lay out our base assumptions are there's no such thing as being illegal. We are a sanctuary city, and we believe that every state should be able to decide who comes into the state. We want to get a constitutional acknowledgement, I guess, from the Supreme Court that the state has the right to say yes, enforce, no, enforce, which it looks like Trump was told that he overstepped by taking a hold of the National Guard. But I'm very confused by that because when you look at the David Wallace one where he was trying to stop the desegregation from happening in the Alabama schools, surely he did not give permission for request that the National Guard be brought. I can't imagine that. Maybe I'm wrong about that. It's certainly possible. So they would have to play it out that way. Like they would need something other than an emotional appeal. Like these are the things that we're looking for. So we want you to stop now based on this ruling. We want to get before the Supreme Court so that we can draw a bright line as to whether sanctuary cities are legal or not. And if you lay out like a very small number of things that explain why the state rights should be sovereign. If we're trying to do it at a national level, I think you're going to have a harder time because at the national level, it's like we voted for the president. And the president, obviously, I mean, this was like one of his top campaign things. So it really comes down to a question of the Supreme Court. So getting the Supreme Court to rule fast, I mean, is about all you're going to do. And if you want your protest to work, don't be violent. Like, don't be violent. That doesn't help your cause. That hurts your cause. So why people insist on giving them a reason to stop them? Like, people are going to take you seriously if 500,000 people roll up. So, and if you don't have the numbers, then you might not have the cause. And so being violent is the way that you get the extra attention when you don't have the numbers is how it's largely going to be read.
That was actually going to be the thing I wanted to dive a little deeper, because even within the same movement, there is arguments. People are saying, you know, the Martin Luther King Jr. quote of the riots are the voice of the unheard. So they're using that as a way to justify, this is us being unheard, where we want to make you, you know, look at us, show us, while you're also saying, it's actually helping the other side saying, look, they're just being violent. So do you think there is a time and place for violence in a way of protest? Or are you saying in all, never do it, it just doesn't work, it doesn't help you out?
Read Long Walk to Freedom by Nelson Mandela. He talks about this in the book. What he said was, I keep violence in my back pocket. And violence is an option. But boy, is it like the last option. And so as he was getting older and he was still in prison, young militants were coming into prison. And Mandela had so much clout that they were trying to convince him to authorize the use of violence. And he kept saying, no, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, we need to come out. We need to unify. It's the only way that we're going to move forward. And reading that book really, really hit me, because it was one of the first times that I encountered somebody who I was like, I'm not capable of doing what they did. I just don't have the character, man. That's hard to say, but fuck, I just don't think I could do it. So I was very impressed. And there's such a long history of people letting themselves be bitten by the dogs and sprayed with a fire hose and just making sure that the cameras are there. They're not stupid. You don't want to do that one when no one's there to watch, but you make a display of it. You show that you're peaceful. You show that you're on the right side by being peaceful. You let the people who are being violent look like the psychopaths. Like, if you're not breaking things and the National Guard is shooting rubber bullets at you, then it looks dictatorial. And now you've got everybody on your side. But when the image that's getting spread around is a burning Waymo and a guy on a motorcycle doing donuts around it holding the Mexican flag, that is not the image that you want going everywhere. That's going to make more Americans feel some kind of way. So if you're trying to get people on your side, you want to show, look, this is mostly loving, kind, beautiful people that have come here for a better life. They've fled something terrible to the land of opportunity, to the land that has a statue that says, like, bring me your poor huddled masses. Like, don't lose your soul, America. Like, and feature maybe not the people that themselves that are illegal because they're just going to get grabbed, but like feature stories of people who came and have gotten citizenship and, you know, did start illegally, because there are plenty of people that came illegally but now have citizenship, and I'd be featuring them and their stories and like how they've contributed to America and they make this a better place and a place that I want to be. And it's like, fuck yeah, you're reminding me of my soul and why this place is amazing. And if you're doing it non-violently, especially if Trump then goes militant, oh man, like everybody's going to be on your side. But you have to have a clear objective and you've got to take the high ground.
Let's say they do all that. Will you then be on the side of the protests and potentially change your belief on how immigration works if they do everything you just laid out?
Of course not.
Even if
you're not going to push me on why of course not?
Yeah, because I was going to say, like, you laid out the game plan. They get the very specifics. Here's how they do it. It's all a game ultimately of optics, and you got to change people's hearts.
Yeah.
But your hearts won't be changed because your value isn't. You're thinking they're actually just playing a game of optics, but value-wise, fundamentally, you still disagree, and that, I guess, no game of optics will change your point of view, but you think for the masses it will, and you'd just be fine with how that works out.
You asked me to give them advice for what would work.
Yep.
You didn't ask me
how it would change.
How, like, what's better for poor people, just to be really pointed. If you import a bunch of immigrants, full stop, legal, illegal, doesn't matter. If you bring a bunch of people into the country that don't share your values, and worse, that are not contributing to the economy and are taking resources from entitlements, and they do get entitlements, even being illegal, you're already in a deficit. So you're just going to make matters worse. Now, are there ways that you could do it well? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, because I think
but
you
then
say you support
pass laws.
Immigration.
Of course. Like, but let me be very clear. I want to scour the world for what I call foreign-born Americans, and I want them to be the best and the brightest. People that want to come here, they want to build, they want to make the place better. Like, that's what I'm talking about.
What do you say to the people on the right who are more like, I don't even want that? Like, we should be taking care of our
They have
own
mismapped reality. It does not make sense. You are not thinking in a way that's going to serve you.
They make a joke, but they're like, you don't see China importing a ton of Indians.
Yeah, no. If your game is to be China, Japan, or whatever, and you're going to play a homogenous game, hey, fair enough. America ain't playing a homogenous game, but you cannot not have shared values. Shared values is an absolute must. And honestly, like, listen, I'm not worried about when it comes to shared values. Like, I've lived in LA forever, 30 plus years. I'm not worried about people coming from Mexico, South America, from a shared values perspective. Super hardworking, they integrate pretty fast. You'll get one generation that doesn't learn English, but by generation 2, they're all speaking English, hardworking. My American experience is so integrated with that. That just feels like America to me. That's not going to be the question of values that we're going to be asked to face. The question of values we're going to be asked to face is almost certainly one of Christianity versus Muslim. That's going to be the big conflict that I see from a values perspective, because they are very different. So if people are coming here that want to see Sharia law become the law, that's going to be rough. That one is a collision of values that we are going to have to answer the question one way or the other what we're doing. But again, bright lines. You've got to be able to say, listen, we have laws. These are the rules. This is that. You adhere or you get the fuck out. But my take on what we should be doing with the people that have come in currently is different than what Trump is signaling. So,
and just to wrap up that point, how would you actually make sure these people that you would bring in actually match your values?
You have to literally screen them one by one.
Can they lie?
Of course. You're never going to do it perfectly, but bro, like, at least Have they raped anybody? Have they killed somebody?
No crimes,
Are they wanted? Like
crimes, but like
that'll
American
be
values.
big.
What you want is their American values.
Yeah, of course, of course. And are you going to be perfect? No, you're not. So sit down, talk to them, ask them what they care about. What do they hear? Did they study something? Put them on a like trial period so that like if you've got somebody that came over here on a student visa and they're out marching in the streets with anti-American values, get them the fuck out. Like that to me is just like, that is a no fucking brainer. You had your 4-year trial. You did not pass. Thanks for playing. Time to go home.
All right. Well, we can go deeper, but again, we have a super chat. So
let's go.
Another
Yeah,
$20
super
super chat. Mr. Mike AZ057. This one's written a little short. I think he was trying to fit a lot in it, so bear with me. Judge bad. Supreme Court will side Trump. Prez must handle immigration, not state. Issue is House seats based on pop legal or not. It's cheating. Cali has extra seats and votes now. Cannot allow people to cut in line.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with any of the parts that I understand. I don't judge bad, like going to a judge may be bad. Remember, I was just telling people what they should do if they want to win, not what I want them to do. So yeah, I agree. Immigration should be handled at the national level for sure. And if you have people in here illegally and they are not going to like police that, that's crazy. So yeah, that feels like you should be able to stand it. All right, Brutus Lou goes back into his all caps here. Tom's assumption is that most immigrants don't have these shared values. I don't know that I would say that that's true.
Yeah. So, and I saw other people saying leftists don't have our values. We should deport all of them. So if your core thing is values, let's say that, like, if we could actually find people's values and who align to your American values, you are a dictator of America. Why would you not just get rid of everyone who doesn't, quote unquote, support your values, even if they are a citizen versus, but let's say the illegal immigrant. I love American values. I will die for this country. I'll do.
Because I have a value that says if you are a citizen,
where does that come from?
You're a citizen. You have to have a bright line somewhere.
Okay, so you would just say because the laws.
Yeah, you're already a citizen. So we are where we are, and now. The dear kids.
Even if you have the magic wand, you would not wave it and just be like, get rid of everyone who doesn't have the values that I'm setting forth for America.
Yeah. Now, if you can tell me why I would never wave that magic wand, I will be so happy. Someone in chat surely knows why I would not wave that magic wand. Boy, oh boy.
My guess is authoritarian.
This is one where it's like, I'll be like crying myself to sleep tonight because I will finally accept that I'm just screaming into the void. So the reason I would never wave that magic wand is I do not trust myself. So while I believe it and while I think I could wave a magic wand that would make the world a better place, I don't trust that I'm not blind to something, that there is not some catastrophic second and third order consequence that I'm missing. So I just think you have the world that you have. If you're a citizen, you're here, and we're going to have to deal with that. To the youth out in the world, you guys are going to get the world you want. And so if you want a Marxist communist world, you're going to get it. And the reason I scream out into the void is not because I'm worried you're going to take my money away. Long before you get my money, I'll be in Singapore, motherfuckers. So try as you might. But they will suffer the consequences of that. As somebody who cares, about America, just my whole life, I feel so proudly American. And then I want good things for people. I don't want to see anybody suffer. So I have a very strong mental map that I can walk you through why I have it, but I have a very strong mental map that socialism, communism, they are ideas that sound awesome. They sound awesome. To me, they sound awesome. However, they are at odds with the physics of the human mind. And so they can't work. It's impossible for them to work. They will never work. There is no doing it right because humans, you can never get all humans to agree. Once you can't get all humans to agree, you have to force some of them to shut up. And the way that you do that is with violence. And so this is why authoritarian governments always become violent, always. And once you're oppressing the people, obviously I'm out. That's hard pass for me. That's even though I'm not Christian, I so have internalized the idea that all of us have worth and that we should be able to live our lives as we see fit, that as long as we're not hurting anybody else. That's just so in my DNA as the thing that leads people to flourishing. Because, dude, if I forced you to live my life, you would be so unhappy. And if you forced me to live your life, I would be so unhappy, even though you love your life and I love my life. And I don't know how people can't see that. Like, we're all running an N of 1 experiment. And so if you're trying to drag me into like, this is how everybody's going to live, it's just what a recipe for disaster.
I think the point is because at a certain point, we all agree, if you're not hurting me and I'm not hurting you, live your life.
We don't all agree with that. For sure, 1,000%, as evidenced by all the people that say tax the billionaires.
Interesting. Because I was even going to take it back to, again, there are fundamental beliefs, like even religion, as you were saying, and how that changes people's operating framework of where it's like, because I have the truth and I'm 100% sure of that, versus your core value, and I believe you could tell me if I'm wrong, is...
Really fast, I want to pause you because it's possible something's happening in the chat right now.
Eunice
is Eunice in the chat?
She is indeed.
Oh.
You nice. You nice. You are welcomed back as a returning hero. How wonderful to see you in the chat. As we said, chat, when Eunice left, when I say on good terms, I mean good terms. She is such a great human. So Eunice, it's wonderful to see you here. I'm glad things are going well. So thank you for popping in. All right, David, back to your question.
Going back to your fundamental value is the Socrates quote of, the only thing I know is that I don't know everything.
The only thing I know is that I know nothing. Yeah.
Nothing. Because that is what kind of frames all your decisions when you try to make sense of the world. You're like, would I, again, I gave you the magic wand. You're like, I would not wave it because I don't know everything. You don't know the second or third order consequences. But people, are you just thinking that other people, they just don't fully understand your argument of that and the third and second order consequences? Because so many people would wave that wand.
Yeah, so here's frame of reference is like wearing a pair of glasses that distorts the world. You don't realize that you have a pair of glasses on. So you think that you're seeing the world as it actually is. Once you become aware that you have glasses on that distort you, all of a sudden you're like, oh, wow, then I really can't be trusted. I'm doing my best to figure out what's true in the world so that I can navigate. And then you may have another realization, something like, oh my God, like not only do I not see the world as it is, I'm subconsciously steering towards a goal that I don't even realize that I have. Oh my God, now that I realize I'm stuck in a frame of reference, steering towards invisible goals, and I don't steer by logic. So even if I knew where I was going, I'm actually secretly only doing the things that make me feel the way that I want to feel. And oh shit, there are even negative emotions that I want to have. I want to be outraged. I want to be freaking out. So wait, I'm steering my life in a way where I feel outraged and like I just want heightened emotions. Holy hell. Like, humans are a very complicated creature and we're wonderful and loving, and I love humans and I love people. Legitimately, David, it was so fun last night for so many of you are not going to care, but just to invite you inside. So David came into town yesterday and it was like an old band getting back together. So David works remotely right now, but it was interesting how we all like gathered around. It was super late because David was part of the late night crew. So we have a crew that works sort of normal hours, and then we have a crew that works inhuman hours. And no, they're not forced to, they just do because they match the energy that I have. So anyway, David comes, we all click, we're like hanging out and having fun. And it's that kind of thing is amazing. I don't remember why I started down that path, David. I won't lie. I was like, God, can I bring it back together? Where was I going, David Kim? This is your role. Yes, exactly. God damn it, David.
Sorry,
I can't remember the last time that happened to me. There it is. Anyway, fun story, but it was meant to tie back to something else. That was really good, by the way, Eric.
Values, but
nicely played.
We have last 5 minutes. We could touch upon, I know AI is one of the core things, and I just wanted to tie it in with the drone attacks. I saw this across my feed, and I started getting a little scared. But for the first time, autonomous drone has defeated the top human pilots in an international drone racing competition. And so when I see that, I see all the advancements of AI, and I know...
No, Joey.
I know we're in the joy of like, AI can do so much for us. Do you think we're mapping the downsides correctly enough?
No, there's no way that we can see the future clearly. But
you would not stop the progress of AI, even if you could.
I wouldn't, for the same reason that I just don't know that I understand it well enough that people should trust me with that decision. I am choosing to be optimistic, but dear chat, you guys made the deep dive #1. Let's see if we can repeat 1 out of 10. Let's see if we can repeat that on Monday. Monday's deep dive is literally about this. AI is coming. It is going to eat the world. It's like every scenario that I run, it transforms the world so dramatically. I think it will transform the world so dramatically, even if it asymptotes, that you won't recognize the world in 7 years. I mean, it's not like it will happen slowly over those 7 years. It's not like the very end of year 6 that it suddenly clicks over. It's, you know, going to be happening the way that it's happening now. Like, I don't even recognize my workflow from a year ago because I use AI for things so much now. But I think that, yeah, over the next 2 years are going to be really pivotal. And so you'll see that almost certainly in the headline that the next 2 years, everything is going to change. But every time I run the scenario, it's industrial revolution scale change. And that means a generation or two will get obliterated. And the funny thing is, when you go back and read the concerns that people had, it was like, but what are lamplighters going to do, man? Like, they're just going to be out of work. Yep.
Yeah, people that wouldn't expect project managing is actually a role that exists.
Yeah, like
so abstract.
we can't imagine what the new jobs are going to be, but we can imagine the old jobs going away. And so the old jobs are going to go away. They are going to get obliterated. Your life is going to be unrecognizable 7 years from now. Most people won't plan for it. They'll get hit by it. They'll have an emotional reaction. They will try to reject it, move away. And I interviewed a guy who was considering coming to work for us, and he said AI is evil. And I was like, whoa. So it's like
they call it a demon in so many circles.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are going to be people that really have that kind of reaction. And I'll be curious to see in the attack, in Israel's attack on Iran, how much we see the AI ended up playing a role. From what I hear, some of their attacks were drones. And then you had Iran's initial attack back was also drones. So it's like, once you understand that the world is, AI is nested inside of the US versus China. And for people that don't know game theory, there's something called the prisoner's dilemma. And the prisoner's dilemma is, if we both cooperate, everything's fine. But if one of us cooperates and the other betrays, then the betrayer wins disproportionately. And given that, if I know that you might betray and then I would lose big, and if I betray, I win, and if we both betray, then it's just status quo, game theory says you're both going to betray. So even if we said, hey, we should slow down, game theory says even if we publicly say we're going to slow down, we're both behind the scenes going to be pushing it forward. So what I'm hoping I can convince people of in the deep dive is that AI is going to happen. It is an unstoppable train. So any amount of energy you put into, I hope this doesn't happen, this isn't going to happen, whatever, wasted energy. The US v China guarantees that this will go as fast as it can. So embrace it. Be at the cutting edge for Shways. Is the red light real?
Yes.
Yes, let's get
Hit
it.
us with
One last super chat. Mr. Mike AZ057 for $20. Surprise Tom's policy work motto hasn't been used with tax bracket restate congressional House seats based on population. Illegals are counted to give California extra seats, meaning extra votes. Knowing nothing is knowing something. This is impossible for me to decipher.
Well, so I get the core of what he's saying. I don't know how it relates to my policy work motto, but what he's saying is, and it was, I think he was the person that put this in his first one, or somebody else said the same thing, that the census only counts people, it does not count citizens.
Right.
And so given that it's based on the census, you get more electoral votes, if nothing else, and seats in the House, based on your population, which means illegals count. And so this was Elon's whole thing of like, they are doing this to make this a one-party state, which I can't believe people want. Like, a one-party state is a fucking nightmare. So yeah, I get it. Now, how that interfaces with my work policy, I don't know what he means by that. So from an immigration standpoint, what I want to see is you set up laws that are voted on by Congress, that we the people vote for, and then we get the world that we want. And I just really hope that people understand that with the economic system that we have right now, it is a mathematical certainty that people are going to lose their entitlements. So everybody, it is a mathematical certainty. It is not a question. It is a mathematical certainty that people are going to lose their entitlements. Everybody. So your only hope is to save some of them. The only way that you have possibly to get out of that would be that AI becomes such a productivity boom that you're able to grow your way out of the debt. If you don't grow your way out of the debt, it is game over. You either cut them, which we saw the backlash of trying to cut them, or you grow your way out. That's it. This is, I've mentioned this before, but Peter Attia, the guy now famous for health, was an oncologist, was so disheartened by the state of cancer and how many people were dying that he ends up leaving medicine. And for a while, he's an actuarial mathematician. So he's the guy that figures out basically when people die. And he was working at banks, and they were trying to figure out, like, you know, what's going to happen with these subprime mortgages. And so he said, Tom, I just looked at the math, and it was a mathematical certainty. There was nothing they could do. The banks were going to go out of business. And he was like, we had to go tell the banks, you're going to go out of business. Like, there's no way to stop it. And I'm telling you, I'm not a mathematician, but I'm telling you right now, you can go ask mathematicians. It is a mathematical certainty that unless you change your debt to GDP ratio, you will lose entitlements. If I could get that to land, then people might go, oh, I get it. All of these decisions are nested inside of a different context. And once it's not about, like, do I care about this person? Because what people are arguing for is, do I want entitlements to last 7 more years or 4 more years? And if you just want to flood the zone with more people, not even call them illegals, like you love them and you want to see them have a good life. And so you want them to come here because you care, because you're a good person. I'm just saying you'll kill everyone's entitlements faster. So the goal should be like, how do we get it to last for 12 years, 15 years, so that we can have time to migrate off of the broken financial system into one that works. But we are now at mathematical certainty points. So,
and I know we have to wrap, but I would like to, I can't leave this live without also giving people that last AI scoop. I know it's also going to be on Monday. So I'll show 2 tweets. And this first one is going to be about Apple's breaking research that just showed that, again, this might be hopeful for the people who are AI doomers, but they have, quote unquote, proved that AI models are not actually reasoning. They are actually stochastic parrots. And they're just pattern matching, and they have no deep thinking.
Guaranteed. The question is, I didn't know anybody was confused about that. That is like a guarantee.
That AIs can think. They could be human general intelligence.
Because you're assuming that humans aren't doing the same fucking thing. So I'm saying that if they're able to pick up on patterns that are way deeper than what we can pick up on.
It's a different way of thinking, because it seems like we can actually reason through steps that are more complex. They actually literally, no matter if you give them infinite tokens, they run to a wall where they literally just stop thinking. They're like, I can't, the pattern matching is too large, and they just quit. Versus for us, we can continue to kind of push into finding those new discoveries. They can't find these quote unquote new discoveries. They're just pattern matching within. That being said, Sam Altman also just dropped something in his blog saying, literally his first line is, we are past the event horizon. The takeoff has already started. Humanity is close to building digital superintelligence, and at least so far, it's much less weird than it actually should be.
Yeah, so I will tell you that the difference in belief here is how far pattern matching is going to take you. A computer is never going to be like a human, literally never. You would have to embody it, give it bacteria, like all the things. People do not understand how humans think. Like even the limited amount that we do know about how humans think, which is admittedly limited, most people don't know. As you begin to research the brain and how we actually make decisions and all of that, it's so crazy and chaotic, and has to do with when was the last time you ate and what's the bacteria in your system. If you've ever been married to a perimenopausal woman, you fully understand that the chemicals in their body will change the way that they process data. It's absolutely fascinating. You're having a biological experience, boys and girls. Guys, thank you. This is almost certainly a record-setting live. You guys are amazing. I cannot thank you enough for this. Thank you for being a part of the community, for arguing mostly in good faith. It is really wonderful to see the pushback and all that. Love it the most. And shout out. Have a good weekend. Stay safe. Hopefully it's nothing this weekend and nobody has to worry about it. And we will see you next week. All right, everybody. You're rad. Later.